Chapter 637. Even if Qi Xiaohun thought about it over and over again, he might not be a match for Li Zhongjie. It was already very impressive to be able to cripple the Yin Laos. Qi Xiaohun had also fought with the Yin Laos before. However, both sides did not use their full strength at that time. It was naturally not a problem to take down the Yin Laos, but they would also have to pay a certain price. In addition, there was no way to achieve this in a short period of time. Therefore, Qi Xiaohun had such a conjecture in his heart. However, these things were not urgent to be clear now. At least, their relationship with Li Zhongjie was still good. If they could maintain this friendly relationship, it might not be a bad thing for the Qi family. However, Li Zhongjie has helped us so much. We have to return the favor with a big gift. Qi Xiaohun thought in his heart. Not only did they have to maintain a good relationship, but they also had to maintain a better cooperative relationship. I heard that Li Zhongjie's Li Chamber of Commerce has joined the Baihui Chamber of Commerce. We can also take the opportunity to cooperate with them more. Oh, that's amazing. He already has his own Chamber of Commerce. Qi Xiaohun did not expect that it was the elder beside him who said this. Otherwise, he would not have paid attention to this aspect. Immediately, Qi Xiaohun could not help but become more curious about Li Zhongjie. This guy is really amazing. Although the group had resolved the crisis, they still had to remain vigilant at all times. Now that they had returned to the main road of the city, the danger had lessened by a lot. Although the Yin Yuan sect was arrogant, they only dared to stay outside the city. This time, they rashly broke into the city and took them by surprise. It was quite a risky thing to do. Li Zhongjie went all the way back to his manor. He landed with a whoosh and saw that in the courtyard, Du Liani was playing happily with the little girl Dou Ling. Addicted to gambling at such a young age, Li Zhongjie saw the thing in front of Dou Ling. It turned out that the two were talking about playing cards. What's wrong? If you're not convinced, you can come and kill me. Dou Ling slammed the table with a heroic spirit. She was like a veteran who had fought in the casino for many years. She learned this move from Du Liani. Sometimes things like playing cards relied on bluffing. If you succeeded in scaring your opponent, then you had already succeeded more than half of the battle. Li Zhongjie was too lazy to argue with this little girl. I'm busy. After speaking, Li Zhongjie returned to his courtyard. First, he repaired his everlasting extermination array. Then, in the middle of the night, he asked Shadow Fox to help him get some stones. It wasn't until the second half of the night that the array was finally repaired. It was all Dou Linger's fault. Wasn't she too violent? She actually destroyed this thing just like that. Who would have thought that a little girl like her would be so violent? Such a precious thing could only be repaired once more. Li Zhongjie spent the entire second half of the night setting up the Yuan inscription array in his hands. The everlasting extermination array was also repaired at this moment. At the same time, Li Zhongjie made the array remember the aura of the few people in the courtyard. This way, the everlasting extermination array wouldn't attack them. Then, Li Zhongjie came in front of Lu Wenshan. At this moment, Lu Wenshan's body was riddled with wounds. His yuan bead was severely damaged, but at least his consciousness had recovered a little. At least, he was able to complete his sentence. What do you want to let me go, Li Zhongjie? Either you kill me or let me go. Lu Wenshan roared at Li Zhongjie in a deep voice. As he spoke, his eyes were filled with anger. It was as if he wanted to swallow Li Zhongjie whole. However, Li Zhongjie acted as if he didn't see it. It's simple. When your sect pays, I'll let you go. Li Zhongjie said as if this was a simple matter. I only asked for 100 upper-grade yuan stones. Your sect isn't even willing to pay. Tell me, what's the point of staying in a sect like this? Li Zhongjie said. At the same time, his face was filled with regret. He didn't expect Lu Wenshan to be in such a miserable state. It was as if his life's efforts were all fed to an ungrateful wretch. When Lu Wenshan heard this, he couldn't accept it. It was just 100 upper-grade yuan stones. It might be difficult for others, but for Spirit Valley sect, it was just a matter of a sentence. Help me hold it. Just when Lu Wenshan was feeling melancholy, Li Zhongjie stuffed a yuan stone into his mouth. Lu Wenshan thought that Li Zhongjie was going to give him the yuan stone to recover. However, He was pleasantly surprised when he saw some faint lines on the yuan stone. What is this? Come, open your mouth. Lu Wenshan subconsciously opened his mouth. Then, he saw Li Zongjio shove something into Lu Wenshan's mouth. What did you feed me? This is a yuan stone. Once it leaves White Deer Manor, its energy will disappear. It's the one you're holding. In addition, the primeval stone fragment you just ate has formed a kind of energy connection with this primeval stone. Once it leaves a certain range, or if the energy disappears, then the primeval stone fragment in your body will form a hurricane in your body. As for the consequences, Li Zongjio said. The corners of his mouth curled up into an extremely evil smile. Who would have thought that there would be such a fun yuan rune array in this world? It could allow 2 yuan rune arrays to affect each other and coexist with each other. If any one of them had a problem, the other would suffer irreparable damage. When a piece of primordial stone shard formed a hurricane in one's body, one could easily imagine the outcome. Even having one's intestines pierced through was a relatively quick death. This shard would slice through one's intestines inch by inch and easily crush one's body. It was precisely such an outcome that just thinking about it gave him a splitting headache. No one dared to try it. How is this possible? How can there be such a vicious thing? Lu Wenshan stared at Li Zongjio and said, "Oh, I just bought a remnant formation scroll in the black market. After all, I'm worried that I will go out tomorrow. If someone saves you, I will lose out." Li Zongjio said. Lu Wenshan's eyes were filled with an unprecedented fear. He never imagined that Li Zongjio would actually have such a method to prevent such a thing from happening. To Lu Wenshan, Li Zongjio was the devil that would control his life in the future. Alright, you better not move because this link is extremely unstable. If you accidentally throw this yuan stone on the ground, it might explode. After all, I just learned it, Li Zongjio said and patted Lu Wenshan's shoulder. I'm sorry. Chapter 638. Li Zongjio left, leaving behind a frightened Lu Wenshan on the spot. He wished he could strangle Li Zongjio to death. Such a person could not be allowed to live. Originally, Lu Wenshan was also waiting for his own sect to rescue him. But now, it seemed that Li Zongjio's method was to prevent Lu Wenshan from taking even half a step out of the White Deer Manor. If he were to leave, he would undoubtedly die. With Li Zongjio's character, there was nothing he could not do. That day, he had already escaped very far away. Who would have thought that Li Zongjio would chase after him all the way? Finally, Li Zongjio caught him on the street. This made Lu Wenshan feel quite embarrassed. At the same time, he could lose his life at any time. This was what Lu Wenshan was worried about. As a person who had the chance to become a 6th-grade alchemist, he was not willing to die like this. After leaving the stable, Li Zongjio went back to his room to rest for a while. The sky was slightly bright. Du Liani woke up from the bed and dressed up carefully. The hatred in her heart for these years finally had a day to vent. Even if Li Zongjio could not take revenge this time, if she had the chance to see her enemy, she would do it herself. A delicate dagger was polished by Du Liani until it was shiny. Finally, the day has come, Du Liani murmured in her heart. Do Ling studied the gambling cards in her room all night. This thing was really interesting to play. It looked like a simple prop, but it had a myriad of changes. Last night, Do Ling also tried to use her mental strength to calculate the changes, but when she met an expert like Du Liani, she still lost. There was no chance of winning at all. Even if she used her mental strength to cheat, she could not win. This was what made Do Ling depressed. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door of the manor. Hu went to open the door. Kuan Arashir stood at the door and waited. During this period of learning from Senyu, Kuan Arashi's temperament had become more restrained. However, as a young talent of Kuan Castle, and the future hope of the Kuan Castle, he had never let go of his dream of becoming famous in the Holy Flame. It wasn't easy for him to attend such an exchange banquet today. He could finally relax a little. They were worried that Li Zongjio would forget the time, so they specially sent him an invitation. You are? Hu asked with a frown when he saw the young man in front of him. It was Kuan Arashi's first time visiting Li Zongjio's house. Wow, is this boss's mansion? This courtyard. This courtyard is really small. Lan Shan hadn't even walked in yet, but his face was already filled with disdain. Could it be that this boss didn't earn any money at all? How could he be in such a miserable state? Young man, who are you looking for? Inghu said. Li Zongjiu lives here, right? He's my boss. Kuan Erishur said. Who's your boss? That little brat. Just as Kuan Erishur was speaking, Do Linger jumped out from the side. Her sudden appearance and disappearance didn't scare Kuan Erishur. Oh my god, when did boss raise a child bride? What nonsense are you talking about? I'm a bodyguard that your boss spent a lot of money to hire. Do Linger immediately glared at Kuan Erishur. He really didn't have any eyesight. What child bride? How could someone like Li Zongjiu afford to raise a child bride like her? Bah, who's a child bride? Do Linger thought in her heart. Then, she felt that this Kuan Erishur in front of her was even more annoying. Oh, you're here to look for the young master? The young master hasn't woken up yet. You can wait in the courtyard for a while. Inghu said. At the same time, he stepped aside to let Kuan Erishur in. Okay. However, just as Kuan Erishur walked in, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Ha! A terrifying axe fell from the sky directly towards Kuan Arashi's head. The sharp Kuan Erishur could also see that the axe was formed by Yuan Li. However, he couldn't withstand such a powerful aura. Most importantly, Inghu and Do Linger didn't seem to see it. It was completely aimed at him. Boom! The terrifying force instantly fell to the ground. Kuan Erishur took a step back and dodged the attack. However, the sharp force still hadn't passed. If he wasn't careful, he would have directly handed his head over. What the hell is going on? Even Inghu and the others were a little surprised. Immediately, Inghu slapped his own head. Sorry, I forgot. The young master set up in Yuan Li array yesterday. You have to take this and you'll be fine. Otherwise, the Yuan Li array will automatically attack you. Inghu said. Just now Kuan Erishur was so scared that he jumped out. He didn't dare to step into the manor again. Hearing Inghu's words, Kuan Erishur was shocked. What? Boss even knows about the Yuan Li array? This isn't something that humans can learn. In fact, Inghu also knew a little about the Yuan Li array. After all, it was related to mental energy. In addition, Kuan Erishur wanted to develop in many aspects. However, after learning for a while, he gave up because it wasn't something that humans could learn. Even someone like Kuan Erishur couldn't stand it. No wonder only some old guys liked to study the Yuan Li array. Moreover, it was very outstanding because it was too boring. Repeating it over and over again, the same thing. Moreover, you still had to sit there all the time. But are you sure that I can walk in with this token? Kuan Erishur asked carefully. Looking at the token that Li Zongjiu personally carved, he felt lucky that he reacted quickly and retreated in time. Otherwise, he didn't know when he would be trapped inside. Besides death, there seemed to be no other way out. Of course, with this thing, the array will recognize you. It's okay, come in. Inghu pulled Kuan Erishur again and again before he dared to walk in. This time, the situation didn't happen again. If it happened again, Kuan Erishur would probably be traumatized by Li Zongjiu's manner. Hey, you're also a student of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, right? Do Linger poked Kuan Arashi's shoulder and said, Don't poke my shoulder. I'm a student of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Kuan Erishur said, Then do you want to play cards? Do Linger suddenly said excitedly, Damn! What does it have to do with whether I'm a student of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor or not? That's not right, little junior brother. Your senior sister is asking you to play cards. How can you refuse? Come, we don't have to pay. Do Linger had been studying for the whole night, and was worried that she didn't have a partner to play cards with. No. Why are you my senior sister? Who are you? Kuan Erishur didn't know Do Linger in front of him. Although Do Linger was very good looking, she wasn't Kuan Arashi's type. He also couldn't directly touch her like this. However, Kuan Erishur couldn't win against Do Linger. In the end, the two of them and the wolf played cards in the courtyard for the whole afternoon. Kuan Erishur was really surprised that this wolf knew how to play cards. Anything that had something to do with Li Zongjiu was basically abnormal. Chapter 639. In the afternoon, Li Zongjiu came out of his room. he discovered that the group of people were sitting obediently in front of Du Liani, listening to her teaching the card-playing techniques in her hands. Some things were not only useful with intelligence, but also required a certain amount of experience. Not only Do Ling but Ing Hu Kuan Erisher and the Howling Moon Wolf King were all seriously listening to what Du Liani was teaching. You bunch of people who don't want to make progress. Li Zongjie wanted to give each of them a slap. This group of people was really too much. Cough cough boss, it's this stinky girl who dragged me here to listen. It's mainly because Teacher Du's teaching is too good. Kuan Erisher suddenly stood up and said. At the same time, he pushed all the blame to Do Ling. When Do Ling heard Kuan Arashi's shameless words, she was flustered and exasperated as she took a big step forward. You brat, how dare you slander me? As she said that, she swung her hand with all her might. With a bang, Kuan Erisher was forcefully smashed to the ground, causing Kuan Erisher to be unable to react. Did this guy have to be so terrifying? The Howling Moon Wolf King turned his head away as if nothing had happened, as if he couldn't bear to watch this scene. With this small body of Kuan Erisher, he actually dared to challenge Do Ling. This was simply a sign that he hadn't lived long enough. Li Zongjie didn't stop these people from fooling around. After Kuan Erisher stood up, he really wanted to fight to the death with Do Ling. However, thinking that he was a well-mannered and educated person, even if he won against this woman, it didn't mean that he was powerful. Instead, he might be cursed for bullying women. Thus, Kuan Erisher rolled up his sleeves again. The main thing was that he was worried that he couldn't win. Kuan Erisher thought in his heart. For the time being, he swallowed this anger. He didn't expect that this little girl, who looked weak and petite, didn't even have time to react when she attacked. Just from this point alone, Kuan Erisher knew that he was definitely not a match for the person in front of him. Is the evening conference about to start? Why is it only you? Where's that Shuiyu girl? Li Zongjie still remembered Shuiyu. She was the girl who said that she wanted to gather 1 billion purple yuan and then seek treatment from Li Zongjie. Wasn't she with Kuan Erisher all day long? Why was there only Kuan Erisher? That girl said that this banquet is boring and won't go. Moreover, the main thing is that she doesn't have a quota. The Heavenly Time Medicine Manor only gave 2 quotas to the disciples below. In the end, it fell to Kuan Erisher and Li Zongjie. Li Zongjie's quota was already decided internally, but Kuan Arashi's quota was won by Senyu. After all, Senyu's seniority as a teacher was enough to have a say among these alchemists. What quota? Li Zongjie asked. The quota to go to the Myriad Tea Manor. This place isn't a place that can be entered casually. Without an invitation, it is said that even a fly can't fly in. After saying that, Kuan Erisher took out the invitation in his hand. The words Myriad Tea Manor were carved on it. What kind of place is this Myriad Tea Manor? Li Zongjie had never heard of any 10,000 tea mountain villa. Was a tea seller so arrogant? Then what would happen to the world? Wouldn't it be better to give it to these people to make decisions and listen to them? You don't even know about the Myriad Tea Manor? Do Ling looked at Li Zongjie in surprise. It was as though she had seen a country bumpkin with black clothes entering the city. You know about it? Li Zongjie looked over. Do Ling shook her head naturally. This room is full of top-notch goods. Kuan Erisher shook his head helplessly. However, when he was about to explain, he realized that he didn't know much. Actually, I'm not too sure. Everyone immediately gave Kuan Erisher the middle finger. You little brat. You can pretend to be a fool here. How dare you do this on purpose? You don't even know what's going on, yet you're still fooling around here. Anyway, that's what they all say. However, I know that the owner of this Myriad Tea Manor is surnamed Zhuang. Even if his surname is Bai, it's none of my business. Li Zongjie said directly. The girls shook their heads, as though they didn't understand the meaning behind Li Zongjie's words. However, Kuan Erisher burst into laughter when he heard it. He was indeed worthy of being his boss. His seemingly simple words were filled with a thick flavor. Young master, if it's inconvenient, I'll wait outside. Although Du Liani didn't know much about the Myriad Tea Manor, she could tell from her intuition that it wasn't a simple place. If he were to offend someone or something inside, wouldn't that be adding unnecessary trouble to him? Don't give me that. I said I'll bring you in. There's no room for discussion. Li Zongjio said. Boss, what's going on? Kuan Erasure looked curiously at the duo in front of him. She's Du Liani. I recruited her. Her husband was killed. I'll avenge her tonight. What? Someone dares to do this to Teacher Du. Do Ling suddenly slammed the table and stood up. She couldn't wait to rush out and fight with them. Teacher Du, don't worry. I'll definitely help you. If your young master can't handle it, I'll help you deal with that bastard. Do Ling took good care of Du Liani. Since Du Liani had encountered such a situation, she naturally couldn't let it go. He had to stand up for Du Liani. Kuan Erasure looked at the agitated Do Ling and felt a headache coming. This girl clearly wanted to join in the fun. If it was only one person, he could communicate with them, and they might be able to go in. Now that there were two people, it would be troublesome. Coincidentally, Kuan Erasure was also a person who wasn't afraid of trouble. Okay, let's go. I'll call another carriage. Otherwise, it'll be a bit of a journey. After saying that, Kuan Erasure also walked out. Du Liani's heart was suddenly touched. In the past, when people heard who her enemy was, they were immediately scared and flew away. They hated that they didn't know her. Even the 9th prince just wanted to use Du Liani. He didn't want to avenge Du Liani at all. Then let's go. Li Zongjio waved his hand. The two girls rode in a carriage. In addition, Li Zongjio and Kuan Erasure also rode in the same carriage. Let's go to T Villa, Kuan Erasure said to the coachman. Jia. Chapter 640. Inside the carriage, Li Zongjio first listened to Kuan Arashi's ridicule of Senyu. The things that he had experienced during this period of time made Kuan Erasure almost go crazy. How could there be such a boring thing? All day long, he used different weights and quantities of medicinal herbs, and carried out the same kind of experiment to see the final effect of these medicinal herbs. Also, he stared at the changes of a medicinal herb for 7 or 8 days in a row. It had to be said that if such a thing was done, it would indeed make people crazy. However, because Li Zongjio had mentioned it before, Kuan Erasure also persevered in such an experimental environment. Come, I'll ask you a few questions. Li Zongjio then asked a few questions casually. For a level 5 alchemist, these were somewhat difficult and unpopular knowledge. However, Kuan Erasure was able to answer them without hesitation. For these questions, even Kuan Erasure himself did not realize that these were some of the more advanced questions. To be able to answer them so easily already proved that Kuan Arashi's level had improved a lot imperceptibly. Although what you are learning now is boring, in fact, this is the most basic process of exploration. If you can master these basic things, then you will be able to find the rules and solve any problems with medicinal herbs in the future. Li Zongjio said. His attitude was like that of an experienced person. This made Kuan Erasure feel extremely surprised. He could not help but applaud his boss's pretentious demeanor. Boss, did you also go through this in the past? Kuan Erasure asked curiously. Otherwise, how could Li Zongjio be so clear about it? No, I can understand these basic things as soon as I see them. I've never experienced what you've experienced before. Li Zongjio said. Kuan Erasure almost vomited blood. Li Zongjio's words were really too hurtful. Even if you know that you are talented, you don't have to be so direct. Can't you be a little more reserved? The carriage sped along at high speed. After traveling for about 4 hours, they finally arrived at the foot of the legendary 10,000 T Villa. Li Zongjio also took the time to review the White God Fu. With the strength of the White God Fu, Li Zongjio's mental strength gradually recovered the feeling of his previous life. There was no need to worry about his own Yuan Qi. At least before entering the Yuan Emperor realm, he could rely on the elixirs and primordial stones in his hands to maintain it. However, if he wanted to break through the Yuan Emperor realm, then he must use the place where the spiritual qi between heaven and earth gathered. The reason why Li Zong's rapid breakthroughs during this period of time. In fact, it was also to prepare for the explosion that was about to happen soon. In his previous life, due to his weak strength, there were many treasures that appeared in the early stages. He didn't even dare to get close to them. He could easily intercept and kill you from a few miles away. There would be a relic that would appear soon. If Li Zongjio remembered correctly, there would be a treasure in the relic. In his previous life, it was precisely because someone took the risk and took the treasure away. Moreover, he escaped under the eyes of many experts. Decades later, with the treasure in his hands, he directly became a first-class force in the mainland. No one would have thought that a mere treasure could have such great power. It was really unbelievable. Therefore, if Li Zongjio wanted to build a strong future for his Li family, then he must get his hands on this treasure. Therefore, increasing his strength was also an extremely crucial point. The four of them got down from the carriage and looked up at the mountain in front of them. It seemed to be full of flowers and plants, and there were also rows of imperial guards standing on both sides. These are the imperial guards in the palace. If even the imperial guards are responsible for guarding the place, then this place must be extraordinary. Koan Erishur said. Just as they were speaking, they coincidentally saw an incomparably noble carriage slowly approaching them from behind. A person also jumped down from the carriage. It was Zhao Jingxian of the Zhao family. After Zhao Jingxian got down from the carriage, he naturally saw Li Zongjio in front of him and hurriedly greeted him. However, Zhao Jingxian suddenly thought of something amidst his excitement. It seemed that every time he met Li Zongjio, nothing good happened. Would it be the same this time? Immediately, a trace of vigilance rose in Zhao Jingxuan's heart. He must pay attention to Li Zongjio. If he was not careful, he would do something earth-shattering. Therefore, Zhao Jingxian was also thinking about whether he should find a chance to get past these people in front of him. However, on second thought, this was the 10,000 T villa. He believed that Li Zongjio and the others would not dare to act rashly. Moreover, Li Zongjio was still alive after experiencing so many storms. He must have something extraordinary about him. Zhao Jingxuan's heart was filled with admiration. Isn't this Brother Li? Long time no see, long time no see. Zhao Jingxian immediately laughed and greeted Li Zongjio. Of course, there was also Koan Erishur and the two women. Although Zhao Jingxian was usually a playboy, he still knew how to behave in such an occasion. Moreover, these women were brought by Li Zongjio, so he did not dare to act rashly. However, when he saw Do Ling, a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. It was not that he was attracted by Do Linger's temperament, but he felt that Do Ling, looked a little familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. Why aren't you guys going in? The banquet is about to start. Then let's go. Li Zongjio also waved his hand and walked forward. Then Zhao Jingxian glanced at Du Liani in confusion. He was a little puzzled as to why Du Liani would appear here. From her dressing, it was obvious that Du Liani was not an alchemist. Although Zhao Jingxuan's alchemy level was not enough to participate in this banquet. However, one of his family's elders was invited by the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Therefore, Zhao Jingxian took advantage of it and had the opportunity to get an invitation card. Please show me your invitation cards. When the few of them arrived at the entrance, two tall imperial guards with grave and stern faces stopped the five of them. However, the attitude of the imperial guards was still quite respectful. After all, the people who came to the Myriad Tea Villa tonight were either rich or noble. Some of them were even alchemists with unfathomable powers. They were not people that the soldiers could afford to offend. Then, the few of them handed over their invitation cards in succession. Koan Erishur handed over Li Zongjio's invitation card. In his heart, he was thinking about what to do with Do Ling, and Du Liani. However, he saw that Du Liani and Do Ling also handed over their invitation cards. Oh, so they have already received their invitation cards. Do Ling, and Du Liani looked at each other. In Do Linger's eyes, there was obviously a playful and cunning expression. Please. The imperial guards returned the invitation cards to the few of them and turned around to let them pass. When Zhao Jingxian saw this scene, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Li Zongjio's position today was still relatively well behaved. In the past, he would often cause a ruckus at the first stage. He was simply capable of causing any trouble. This made Zhao Jingxian extremely worried. Du Liani and Do Ling also heaved a sigh of relief. They did not expect Yinghu's methods to be so brilliant. He could even deceive the imperial guards. In this world, was there any place that Yinghu couldn't go? Zhao Jingxian, Do you know what kind of place this myriad tea villa is? It seems to be very high-end. Kuan Arisher asked as he walked. The few of them did not know, but Zhao Jingxian should know since he had lived in the sacred flame royal city for so long. Chapter 641. You guys still don't know what kind of place this 10,000 tea villa is? This time, it was Zhao Jingshuan's turn to be shocked. They had not even heard of the 10,000 tea villa. How could these people survive under the emperor's rule? Is it very powerful? Li Zongjie said with disdain. It's all right. This 10,000 tea villa used to be called Crouching Dragon Villa. It has existed since the establishment of the Xingyan dynasty. The ancestors who established the foundation also settled down here and cultivated quietly. Hence, this place was called Crouching Dragon Villa. However, this name was not suitable and was changed to 10,000 tea villa. The current owner of this 10,000 tea villa is a descendant of the ancestors who established the Xingyan dynasty. However, they no longer mention these names. The current owner of this villa is surnamed Zhuang. His name is Zhuangying. The few of them spoke as they walked. With Zhao Jingshuan's explanation, they seemed to have understood the origin of this 10,000 tea villa. This guy must like to gamble, Li Zongjie said. He was actually called Zhuangying. This name was really interesting. From what Zhao Jingxian said, it seemed that the 10,000 tea villa was a place to settle down. The great heroes who established the country in the past not only did not have an equal share of the country, they were also trapped in this villa. Their descendants were also imprisoned in this villa. Those who did not know would think that these people were extremely loyal. Even if they established the country, they would still protect it. However, in reality, they were just puppets of the imperial family. They were objects that were controlled by the imperial family. They were not allowed to leave at all. Even now, many people had already forgotten their contributions. They only remembered that the original emperor Xingyan was the one who established the country and became the emperor of the Xingyan dynasty. However, the descendants of these great heroes were able to live until now because the Holy Flame imperial family wanted to pretend to be benevolent. Secondly, these people had been following the rules for many years and did not dare to cross the line. That was why they were able to live until now. The outside world did not know what they had experienced. This was because this used to be the Crouching Dragon Mountain Villa. It was one of the forbidden grounds of the royal family. Normal people would not have the chance to come to this mountain without an invitation. Don't underestimate the tea leaves on the roadside. These tea leaves are all valuable varieties. Now in the 10,000 tea mountain manor, there are 3 of the top 10 types of tea leaves in the continent. One of them is the soul seedling, Zhao Jingxian said in a serious tone, as if this was something to be proud of. It was as if he had planted the tea leaves himself. What's the use of that? Wouldn't it be burned to ashes the same way? Dou Linger said nonchalantly, but her eyes began to wander. Since this was the only seedling, maybe she could take it away. At that time, it would become very valuable. However, Dou Linger didn't voice her thoughts out loud. Shush. You can't say such things carelessly. If the imperial guards heard it, they would invite you to tea. Zhao Jingxian was a business family after all. A group of businessmen naturally couldn't say such things. If that was the case, Zhao Jingxian would have been imprisoned long ago. He had to be well-behaved, especially in this dynasty. He had to be clean. Otherwise, even the slightest thing could send him to hell. Zhao Jingxian naturally couldn't avoid such an outcome. Oh right, I haven't introduced these 2 yet. I'm Dou Linger. This is my teacher, Teacher Dou Linger introduced herself very generously. Since she could walk together with Li Zongjie, she more or less received Li Zongjie's recognition. When Li Zongjie made friends, he never looked at how strong the other party was. No matter what, they wouldn't be stronger than Li Zongjie. Therefore, Dou Linger didn't look down on Zhao Jingxian because of his strength. Hello, Teacher Dou Linger. This name sounds familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere before. When Zhao Jingxian heard this name, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. When this chill hit his heart, Zhao Jingxian also felt a chill in his heart. Perhaps Zhao Jingxian didn't know this name before, but at least he must have heard of some things related to this name. Wait! A figure flashed in Zhao Jingshuan's mind like a flash of lightning. If he remembered correctly, the person represented by this name was definitely not simple. Your Heavenly Star Medicine Manners Alchemist ranking. The one ranked first. Zhao Jingxian looked at Dou Ling, in shock. Although this Dou Ling, name sounded strange, and didn't look like a very powerful person, she was actually the legendary #1 alchemist. What? So powerful? Kuan Erisher was also very surprised. Looking at Dou Ling, he never thought that this Dou Ling, was actually such a powerful person. This was the alchemist ranking. Up till now, Lan Kuan still wasn't ranked on the alchemist ranking. However, Li Zongjiu's name was already in front of Morong Jian's. Low profile. Dou Ling, actually looked a little embarrassed as she waved her hand. It was as if she was extremely embarrassed by everyone's reverence. This wave of her hand was also a signal for everyone to remain calm and not let their emotions get to their heads. However, how could they not be surprised? Zhao Jingxian really admired this Li Zongjiu. What kind of monsters were following around him? One must know that this legendary #1 alchemist had never shown his face in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Only a few people had seen him a few times in the Genius Pavilion. However, they only knew about it in hindsight and didn't even know Dou Ling's identity. Is the #1 alchemist ranking very powerful? Li Zongjiu walked in front and said indifferently, directly pouring a bucket of cold water. Dou Ling, was originally enjoying the admiring gazes of everyone, but suddenly her smile stiffened. She couldn't wait to rush up and fight with Li Zongjiu. How dare you look down on me? However, after thinking about it, she had already lost to Li Zongjiu in the competition at the Genius Pavilion. There was nothing she could say about that. Indeed, this #1 alchemist ranking was already unworthy of its name. If she was really powerful, she wouldn't have lost in the competition at the Genius Pavilion and could only walk behind Li Zongjiu now. This really made Dou Ling, and herself unable to vent their anger. In the end, she could only swallow this anger. Zhao Jingxian and the others behind were even more shocked. This dignified #1 alchemist ranking, Dou Ling, facing the cold water poured by Li Zongjiu, did not even have the slightest bit of resistance. She was as obedient as a little lamb. This really opened Zhao Jingshuan's eyes. We're here. This is the place. Chapter 642. A small garden appeared in front of them. The terrain was vast, and there were already dozens of long tables. On the tables there were countless delicacies. Looking at it from the beginning to the end, one could not help but drool. The sky was still bright, and some of the main dishes had yet to be served. There were already many people who had arrived in advance. On both sides there were beautiful maids guiding them. At the same time, they could also voice out their requests. These maids were also displaying their postures. This was a great opportunity. The people who came to this place were definitely the upper echelons of the city. If they were fancied by any of the young masters, they would be taken in as a concubine. Then, they would not have to worry about food and clothing in the future. Distinguished guests, please come in. The banquet has not started yet. You can find a place to rest or walk around the tea garden. If you need anything, you can find us at any time. Two maids came forward to welcome them. One of them recognized Zhao Jingxian, and her eyes lit up. This was the young master of the Zhao family, one of the 4 great families. It was said that Zhao Jingxian and Zhao Jingxian were on a roll recently. They had done a few big things in a row. Yes, do you know where Xiao Tiance is? Xiao Tiance. When these maids heard this, they were puzzled. Why are you looking for him? A voice came from behind them. Li Zongjiu also turned around. Zhao Jingxian listened to Li Zongjiu's words. Every time this happened, it was a bad omen. It seemed like something terrible would happen soon. I met a few friends over there. I'll go greet them. You guys continue chatting. After saying that, Zhao Jingxian slipped away like a wisp of smoke. The person who came was a well-dressed young lady. She was holding a stack of documents in her hands. She seemed to be very busy. However, when she passed by and heard Zhao Jingshuan's words, she stopped in her tracks. He owes me money. I'm here to collect my debt. Li Zongjiu said. You must be Li Zongjiu. Su Sha took a small step forward and looked at Li Zongjiu. He didn't have the legendary 3 heads and 6 arms. How could he be so powerful? If such a guy was thrown into the crowd, he wouldn't attract the slightest bit of attention. I am, Li Zongjie said. There was nothing wrong with admitting his name. However, as for the girl in front of him, Li Zongjie didn't seem to have much impression of her. In his impression, he didn't know Su Sha. My name is Su Sha, Heavenly Pill Pavilion's executioner. You should know my grandfather, Su Hong. Su Sha stepped forward and shook hands with Li Zongjie. So it's elder Su Hong's granddaughter. Li Zongjie thought highly of Su Hong. After all, he was fair and just. Furthermore, he stood on Li Zongjie's side. There was nothing much to say. He was one of them. Deputy Commander Xiao Tiance should be patrolling at the halfway point of the mountain. Today is the grand event of the alchemy world. With Deputy Commander Xiao Tiance in charge of security, there shouldn't be any problems. He should be quite busy now. You can look for him after it's over. Halfway up the mountain, right? It's fine. I'm not busy. Li Zongjie's mental energy instantly locked onto a figure in the vast 10,000 T villa. This figure was Xiao Tiance. At this moment, what Xiao Tiance was doing made Li Zongjie sneer. It seems that this very busy deputy commander you mentioned is really quite busy. Hearing that Li Zongjie's tone seemed to have taken a turn for the worse, Su Sha blinked her eyes curiously. What did Li Zongjie mean? What's wrong? You'll know when you come, Li Zongjie said indifferently. Then, he leaped and quickly headed towards the halfway point of the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, beside a narrow and secluded road, a few armored imperial guards were standing guard at the side. They seemed to be on guard against something. From time to time, a woman's exclamation could be heard from a bush not far away. Why don't you shout? The louder you shout, the more excited I will be. A bare-chested man, who looked to be in his 30s, was rubbing his palms as he slowly walked towards a woman in front of him. This woman was only a maid working in the 10,000 T villa. However, the Imperial Guards suddenly captured her and brought her here. They said that they were conducting a security check, but they directly brought her to the man in front of her, who claimed to be the deputy commander. You can't do this. I'm the villa master's personal maid. If you do this, the villa master will not let you off, the maid said in a panic. The man in front of her was obviously plotting something, and from the looks of it, it seemed like it liked some special tastes. I know. You're called Little Butterfly, right? I've been eyeing you for a long time. Don't obey me obediently. I'm the kind of person who likes to resist. Xiao Tiance laughed crazily. He had a morbid liking for the struggling state of the person in front of him. He liked such a scene. When he was in the Imperial Palace, as the deputy commander of the Right Army, he had to guard all the tracks in the Imperial City. Recently, the Right Army commander was being selected. Therefore, Xiao Tiance had been very obedient these days. He had not had sex for a long time. Now, he had heard that Little Butterfly of the 10,000 T villa was charming and gentle. She was good at serving people. Now Xiao Tiance could not care so much. He still had enough time to enjoy himself before the banquet started. Even though Xiao Dai was extremely unwilling, she did not have the slightest ability to retaliate in the face of Xiao Tiance. Even if Xiao Tiance did not feel comfortable serving her, she might just kill him. If that was the case, they might just kill her directly, and no one would come to redress her grievances in the future. A trace of despair appeared in Xiao Dai's eyes. Perhaps there was still a way to survive, if she submitted to the person in front of her. Just as these little butterflies looked at the sky helplessly, the blue of the blue sky seemed to make them yearn for it. What an ironic color this was. The clear sky was no longer there, because darkness had arrived. However, wherever little butterflies gazed past, she vaguely saw a figure appear on the large rock in front of her. Tsk. I've said that he's a beast. Li Zongjie leaned out and said, Let me see. Ah bah, this shameless beast is actually naked. Doling took a glance and immediately covered her eyes. It was as if she had seen the ugliest thing in the world. How dare you show off with this little capital? Kuan Erisher said with disdain. How could this be? Su Sha held the documents in her hands and peeked out from the boulder. She discovered that the man and woman were having an affair in the small forest under the boulder. Not only did they know what was going on, But it was also obvious that they were not doing it willingly. She looked at the man's appearance. Wasn't he Deputy Commander Xiao Tiance? Just half an hour ago, she and Xiao Tiance had confirmed some hidden dangers. At that time, she thought that Xiao Tiance was a promising young man who could at least take into account all kinds of situations under such circumstances. But looking at it now, he was simply a beast dressed in human clothing. Xiao Tiance was also a little puzzled. How could he still hear people talking? When he looked up, he happened to see a few faces looking at him with extreme disdain. "It's okay. You continue. We're just watching," Kuan Erisher said with a smile. Chapter 643. Who are you? How dare you ruin my plans? Xiao Tiance was enraged when he saw the people in front of him. Where are the guards? There's no need to shout. They're all down. What do you expect from them? Kuan Erisher said slowly, and jumped down from the big rock. Su Sha also jumped down and landed one after another. When Xiao Tiance saw that Su Sha was among them, his eyes turned cold. "Miss Su, what do you mean by this? Let's mind our own business." In Xiao Tiance's opinion, Su Sha had deliberately brought people to mess with him. Otherwise, how could others dare to be enemies with him? This was simply impossible. Who didn't know his name, Xiao Tiance? It didn't matter if today's matter was exposed. It would be suppressed sooner or later. She was just a little maid. What could she do? "I just dropped by to take a look. It has nothing to do with me now." Su Sha waved her hand and said. Her eyes gradually became cold and indifferent. As a woman who strived for independence, she also hated this kind of behavior. Originally, when Kuan Erisher and the others dealt with the Imperial Guards, Su Sha wanted to stop them. However, when she saw this scene, she couldn't wait to turn around and kick those Imperial Guards. "How dare you? Su Sha, as a deacon of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, you dare to collude with outsiders to frame this commander." Xiao Tiance was also quickly thinking of countermeasures. Soon, he figured out the situation and killed all the people in front of him. Then he killed the maid. This was easy to explain, although it would be more troublesome to explain it to Su Hong. There was no evidence to back it up. "Miss, don't be afraid." Lon Cohen casually took out an alchemist robe from his storage ring and draped it over Miss Xiao Dai's body. Even now, Xiao Dai was still in a state of shock. If Li Zongjio and the rest had not appeared today, her fate would definitely be extremely miserable. Thank you, Xiao Dai was sobbing. Seeing Miss Lil Dai's situation, Su Sha and Do Ling were so furious that their lungs were about to explode. Shush. Aren't you afraid of attracting the guards? I have a friend who wants to talk to you about something. Once we clear things up, we won't pursue what happened today. What do you think? Li Zongjio said. As Li Zongjio's strength increased, he gradually became more mischievous. Xiao Tian's strong muscles were not afraid at all. It would not take long for him to deal with these kids. What was there to be afraid of? "Oh, I'd like to see what kind of friend you are. You're actually so resourceful as to bring people to deal with me." Xiao Tian sneered. As Li Zongjio and the others looked over, Du Liani also walked out step by step. Du Liani had been waiting by the side for a long time. At this moment, even Du Liani herself had yet to react when facing her enemy. Was she really going to face her enemy directly like this? He even had the feeling that he was dreaming. When she heard Li Zongjio's words, Du Liani finally prepared herself and walked out step by step. It was the person in front of her who killed her husband on their wedding night, changed her life, and brought her countless hardships. The Pan family was even more cowardly. After receiving some benefits, they directly stopped pursuing the matter. The Pan family's cowardice also led to Xiao Tian's insolence. Now that nearly 10 years had passed, Xiao Tian seemed to be unable to recognize the person in front of him in the face of his enemy. He even felt that the woman in front of him was quite familiar. "Who are you?" Xiao Tian was a little puzzled. He just wanted to relax today, but he encountered such a weirdo. He couldn't help but feel depressed. Du Liani in front of him had an impressive figure and a beautiful face, but she was no longer the type that Xiao Tian liked. From the beginning, Xiao Tian liked the more innocent type of girls. Now that he saw Du Liani, he felt that she was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember who the person in front of him was. I'm afraid you've forgotten me, but I won't forget you. My husband is a member of the Pan family, Du Liani said coldly. Her body even trembled slightly, and there was a trace of madness in her eyes. So many years of suffocation, so many years of forbearance, so that she could see the person in front of her and kill him with her own hands. After Su Sha heard this, she finally understood what had happened. It turned out that it was the hatred from more than 10 years ago. It was natural for her to take revenge now, although Su Sha, as the deacon in charge of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, should prevent such a thing from happening. She should send the matter to the judgment hall to be judged. However, looking at Li Zongjio's style and the existence of this legendary figure in front of her, Su Sha wanted to see what exactly Li Zongjio would do if he was here. Was Li Zongjio worthy of such a legendary title? It's you. So it's you. TSK, 10 years have passed. You're not bad, but unfortunately, you're no longer the type that I like. As for you two little girls, if you can stay and accompany me, I can consider letting you go today. Xiao Tiance actually pointed at Su Sha and Dou Ling recklessly. Dou Ling sneered coldly. Su Sha had never imagined that Xiao Tiance would actually be interested in such things. Moreover, he had even said such words so blatantly. Su Sha's face instantly revealed a trace of anger. Just such offensive words alone were enough for Su Sha to list him on the death penalty list. There's no need to say any more. No one can save this idiot today. Dou Ling raised her hand and was already prepared to attack. However, at this moment, a few extremely sharp auras suddenly swept across the sky. Boom! Boom! Not good. It's this fellow's reinforcements. Kuan Erasure waved his hand, and a long spear appeared in his hand. It was the Kuan Wing Spear. As the long spear vibrated, the terrifying aura that it emitted caused Su Sha's eyes to widen. More than 10 figures of the Imperial Guards swept across the sky. Based on the aura of these people, they were clearly the elites of the Imperial Guards. All of them were Origin Ancestor level experts. Kuan Erasure rushed towards these people, and the long spear in his hand vibrated. Dou Ling also rushed towards Xiao Tiance. When he saw Dou Ling rushing towards him, the corners of Xiao Tiance's mouth curled into a cold smile. Water Prism Bead. Xiao Tiance immediately threw out a water prism bead in his hand. Boom! The bead immediately released a wave of water vapor, and instantly trapped Dou Ling within it. What the hell? Dou Ling frowned when she sensed the power of the water prison around her. But at this moment, Xiao Tiance's figure also rushed towards Su Sha at lightning speed. Among these people, it was obvious that Su Sha was the weakest. After taking Su Sha hostage and stabilizing the situation, he would then deal with these brats properly. The Imperial Guards were the last line of defense of the palace. How could their means be simple? Su Sha was shocked when she saw Xiao Tiance rushing towards her. The aura on Xiao Tiance's body was like a ferocious tiger that had been released from its cage. It instantly locked onto Su Sha, causing her to be unable to move and at a loss. Just as Su Sha was panicking, suddenly, she saw a figure appear beside Xiao Tiance. Under Xiao Tiance's shocked gaze, he raised his fist and directly hammered Xiao Tiance's face. Bang! Chapter 644. Xiao Tianche directly spat out 5 teeth, and his body crashed into a stone beside him with a loud bang. Blood kept flowing out from the corner of his mouth, which also made Xiao Tianche quite surprised. Su Sha also felt a flash in front of her. Originally, Xiao Tianche was about to catch her, but at this time, Li Zongjio directly hit Xiao Tianche and sent him flying. There wasn't the slightest bit of fancy movement in this punch. Li Zongjio punched Xiao Tiance so casually and directly, it looked like Xiao Tiance was the one who had bumped into Li Zongjio's fist. Xiao Tiance fell to the ground with his mouth full of blood. His head was still buzzing. Eat this good thing. Li Zongjio directly stepped forward and grabbed Xiao Tianche. With a flick of his finger, he stuffed a pill into Xiao Tianche's mouth. Xiao Tianche naturally did not eat it. When he was about to spit it out, Li Zongjio punched him in the nose. As blood flowed out, he directly swallowed the pill. Then, Xiao Tianche lay on the ground like a dead dog, unable to move at all. Li Zongjio kicked Xiao Tianche in front of Du Liani. I gave him a bone-softening pill. He can't move now, but he will remember every bit of pain clearly. Li Zongjie said lightly. Of course, Xiao Tian's heard it clearly. His eyes suddenly widened, and his mouth was moaning, trying to say something, but he did not have any strength to make any sound from his throat. Du Liani took out the dagger in her hand and walked step by step towards Xiao Tianche on the ground. You send her back. There's nothing for you to do here, Li Zongjie said to Su Sha. The next scene would definitely be very cruel. Although Li Zongjie himself could be considered crazy, he couldn't let these children see such a horrible thing, right? Xiao Dai was not a fool. When she heard Li Zongjie's words, she immediately knelt before Li Zongjie. Sir, please spare my life. Little Butterfly will definitely keep this matter a secret. Please have mercy on me, sir. If something happened to Xiao Tian's Xiao Dai, as the witness today, also saw the faces of Li Zongjie and the others. How could Li Zongjie and the others easily let Xiao Dai go? Therefore, from what Xiao Dai heard, Li Zongjie did this because he wanted Su Sha to deal with her. You don't have to be nervous. I, Li Zongjie, don't need to kill people to silence them. Li Zongjie looked at Xiao Dai and said, then pointed at Su Sha. This is a person from Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Follow her and leave this place. Su Sha looked at Li Zongjie. At this moment, she could be considered to be in close contact with Li Zongjie's aura. It was definitely not the action of an ordinary person. Although killing people was not a glorious thing, Li Zongjie had always done these things openly. He did not hide it at all. Even if you know, what can you do? If Li Zongjie wanted to silence them, then Su Sha would also be killed. The surrounding movements seemed to have attracted more Imperial guards. If they didn't leave now, it would be too late. My name is Su Sha. Su Sha had already seen that Li Zongjie didn't remember her name at all. She immediately snorted with dissatisfaction. Xiao Dai was somewhat at a loss. The situation in front of her seemed a bit strange. But Li Zongjie indeed gave off a different feeling from others. Go quickly. Li Zongjie turned around and looked at Kuan Erisher, who was fighting 15 Imperial guards alone. Next was Do Ling who had just broken the water prison. Damn it. Do Ling seemed to have used an extremely sharp dagger to break the water prison in front of her. Su Sha brought Xiao Dai and left through another path. This Li Zongjie is really daring. I hope he doesn't kill Xiao Tian's. Although Su Sha was very unhappy with Xiao Tian's identity wasn't simple. He was the son of the commander of the Imperial Guard. If his father, who was the commander, started to investigate this matter, it would definitely cause an uproar in the city. Killing an Imperial Guard was basically a provocation to the Imperial Guard. How could they continue to let these people get away with it? Whether it was for public or private reasons, they would use the most unyielding and iron-blooded methods to investigate this matter. Li Zongjie had directly poked a big hornet's nest this time. I'm going to kill that guy. Do Ling aggressively walked in front of Li Zongjie. Li Zongjie also pointed at the direction where Du Liani was torturing Xiao Tian's. When Do Ling saw the bright red color, she immediately turned around and covered her eyes. I can't look. It's blood. I can't see blood. Fortunately, Do Ling covered her eyes in time. Otherwise, she really didn't know what would happen. Li Zongjie raised his head to take a look. Lan Kuan was engaged in a fierce battle with 15 Imperial guards, and was unable to hold on for a long time. Li Zongjie immediately waved his hand, and a cold light flew out from his hand. Whoosh! The cold light swept past. Chi chi chi. The throwing knife easily penetrated the heads of the 15 Imperial guards. Lan Kuan could only watch helplessly as these lively people lost their vitality in an instant. Their entire bodies fell from the sky. Bang! Kuan Erisher also fell back to the ground. At this moment, the throwing knife just happened to fly back to Li Zongjie's hand. My god, you're really awesome. Kuan Erisher gave a thumbs up. He had fought bitterly for so long, but he was still unable to take down Lan Kuan. The main reason was that the formations of the Imperial Guards had a certain degree of restraining the enemy, which hindered Lan Kuan's progress. It was difficult for him to display his true strength. In addition, he didn't dare to make a big scene. At this banquet, naturally, many experts would come in person. Maybe someone would see it. My God, it's really cruel. When Kuan Erisher saw Xiao Tian's miserable state, he couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. This time, Du Liani really killed her enemy with her own hands. After torturing him for a while, Du Liani finally ended Xiao Tian's life with her own knife. Until now, Du Liani felt empty. Revenge didn't bring her happiness, but a kind of relief. Finally, she was free from the whirlpool of pain. Du Liani, thank you, young master, for helping me take revenge. Don't worry. I'll take responsibility for this matter alone. I won't implicate you or anyone else. Du Liani also thought clearly that someone must be responsible for Xiao Tian's death. It was easy to kill Xiao Tian's, but Xiao Tian's father was the Imperial Guard commander. This was not something that could be dealt with casually. In the future, there would be endless pursuit. This is called revenge? Li Zongjiu looked at Du Liani indifferently. Even Du Liani herself was puzzled. Her enemy was already dead, and there were no other enemies left. Was this revenge or not? He killed your husband, and you killed his whole family. This is called revenge. Cut off his head. Tonight, I'll send it to his father, and let his family reunite. Chapter 645. Li Zongjiu spoke in a relaxed manner, but Du Liani and the others were still listening to him. It was inconceivable. Looking at Li Zongjiu, Du Liani's expression was full of shock. In the past, Du Liani had hated the Xiao family. If it were not for Xiao Tian's father's connivance, such a thing would never have happened. Therefore, the Xiao family was not a good person. They were almost the same. However, the strength of the Xiao family was too strong, far beyond what Du Liani could deal with. Therefore, Du Liani only dared to put her hatred on Xiao Tian's. If Du Liani also had absolute strength, she would definitely eradicate the Xiao family. Since Li Zongjiu said such words, it meant that he had taken note of the Xiao family. No matter how powerful the Xiao family was, they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of Li Zongjiu. No. No way. Kuan Erisher had not been shocked like this for a long time. Li Zongjiu had done the same thing in the past. In order to create more trouble for the Yi family, he had directly exterminated the Yi family. Until now, no one had been able to find any clues. Even now, the entire Yi family had been annexed by Li Zongjiu. This was what it meant to be thorough. Now listening to Li Zongjiu's words, it was obvious that the Xiao family was going to be unlucky. How could he easily let go of such a grudge of his son's death? It was absolutely impossible to let it go so easily. There would definitely be a lot of trouble. Kuan Erisher was able to understand Li Zongjiu's thoughts after a little adaptation. After all, it was normal to have such thoughts. What? Young master, don't be impulsive. The Xiao family. Du Liani was extremely moved. In Du Liani's view, Li Zongjiu's thoughts were already dead set on Li Zongjiu. In the future, her life would be in the hands of Li Zongjiu. Who else in the world could take care of his subordinates like Li Zongjiu did? After all, Du Liani was only one of his subordinates. Now he had already killed Xiao Tian's for this subordinate. Now he even wanted to kill his way into the Xiao family's headquarters. This degree of danger could even be said to be no less than attacking Emperor Xingyan. Li Zongjiu did not say any superfluous words, but waved his hand. You two go back first. Go back and watch the house. Tonight, someone will definitely come to our house. Home, said Li Zan said. Dou Ling also closed her eyes and nodded, indicating that she also wanted to leave here as soon as possible. Du Liani did not delay any longer. This matter was of great importance. Based on the commotion here, it was likely that they would be discovered very soon. Give me the head, Li Zongjiu said. Then, Du Liani handed the head in her hand to Li Zongjiu. Let's go. An expert is coming. Dou Ling grabbed Du Liani's hand and quickly disappeared. Only Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erisher were left. They did not expect tonight's matter to go so smoothly. There was really nothing to say, because the movements here, and the smell of blood, had already attracted the attention of the people in the Myriad Tea Villa. Immediately, the two separated and left. Finally, they gathered in the banquet courtyard of the villa. After the two left, in this bloody place, two figures immediately appeared. Damn it, someone sneaked into the villa. The first to arrive here were the experts of the Myriad Tea Villa. After smelling the smell of blood, they quickly rushed over and found that at least 20 Imperial guards had died here. With so many corpses on the ground, it was terrifying. However, when he walked closer to take a look, he saw a headless corpse with a bare upper body lying in the forest. Moreover, looking at the injuries on his body, it was obvious that he had experienced an extremely cruel torture before he died. This person's figure looks somewhat familiar. The two of them looked at each other and hurriedly went forward to search the headless corpse to see if there was anything on it that could prove its identity. When they took out a token from the headless corpse's waist and saw the words on it, their faces immediately became extremely shocked. This is, regarding the identity of the headless corpse, the two experts could only suck in a breath of cold air. This is not good, quickly informed the villa master. Xiao Tian's death immediately set off an uproar in the Myriad Tea Villa. In the Myriad Tea Villa, a series of waves had been set off. Even the villa master of the Myriad Tea Villa, Zhuangying, was busy. They were already extremely busy, but they had to suppress the news of this person's death for the time being. Although Xiao Tian's death is a big matter, the alchemist exchange should not be delayed. Let's temporarily suppress this matter. When it's over, we'll find Commander Xiao, Zhuangying said. When he heard this, Zhuangying's first reaction was that someone was coming to deal with him. They deliberately beheaded Xiao Tian's at such a critical moment. It was obvious that they wanted to create trouble for the Myriad Tea Villa. Villa master, this is a serious matter. The murderer may still be in the villa, someone said. If the murderer's target was not only Xiao Tian's, then wouldn't it be more dangerous? How could such a thing happen at such a critical time? Xinyu, go to the Xiao family and tell Commander Xiao about this. Zhuangying said. It was indeed very dangerous to hide this matter. If something happened in the future, it would inevitably be blamed on the Myriad Tea Villa. In other words, it would be Zhuangying's fault. First, he told the Xiao family that they could do whatever they wanted. At that time, even if Xiao Yin came personally, he probably wouldn't dare to do anything. The 10,000 tea manor status was here. Moreover, tonight's banquet belonged to the alchemists. Therefore, Xiao Yin would not dare to act recklessly. Villa Master, the people from Chongqing Pavilion have arrived. Villa Master, the people from Spirit Valley sect have also arrived. It's Song Chu. At this moment, Zhuangying felt a headache coming. Even Song Chu of Spirit Valley sect had come. Within the Spirit Valley sect, Song Chu's status was at least in the top 5. With such an expert here, this gathering was going to be a very lively event. Villa Master, tonight will be a busy night. Why don't you pretend to be sick? A person dressed as a counselor said. This person was Mr. Bai Cha of the Myriad Tea Villa. His identity to the outside world was that of a tea expert. But in fact, he was Zhuangying's #1 counselor. That's a good plan. If there's anything, let them worry about it themselves. Although it was very direct and obvious, it was a very good thing for Zhuangying. It was a strategy that never failed. Chapter 646. Li Zongjio had already cleaned up the blood dust on his body and returned to the banquet garden. The first to welcome him was Su Sha, who had already returned. Su Sha appeared beside Li Zongjio. When she saw Li Zongjio alone, she couldn't help but be curious. Why are you alone? I'm afraid that I'll scare you. Li Zongjio's expression didn't change as he said very seriously. Su Sha was still in a daze. She never expected Li Zongjio to have such a humorous side to him. I heard that you have quite a number of enemies, but tonight, you probably have to be more stable. The people who came aren't simple. There are a few waves of people who came directly for you. Su Sha said in a deep voice. It was a kind reminder. What's this? Li Zongjio held something that resembled a pastry in his hand, but the white layer on it felt like a layer of rice. It tasted sweet and greasy. In his previous life, Li Zongjio spent most of his time in the abyss of suffering. He might not even be able to eat properly, so he had never seen such a thing that tasted quite delicious. This is called a cake. It was specially made by a chef from Sea Return City. Sea Return City? Isn't that guy very far away? Li Zongjie recalled that Xi Return City's location seemed to be far away. It was already the westernmost part of the Xingyan dynasty. In fact, Xi Return City was actually a small island in the sea. Strictly speaking, it was no longer in the Xingyan dynasty's territory, but it was currently ruled by the Xingyan dynasty. That was the case in name, but Xi Return City had its own system. The city lord of Xi Return City was equivalent to the ruler of a small country. He had his own rules. Yes, that's why it's very precious, Su Sha said. It could be said that the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had spent a lot of effort to organize this exchange banquet. Hey, why did you finish it all? This damn thing tastes pretty good. This was the first time Li Zongjie had eaten this thing called cake in his previous life. It made Li Zongjie deeply feel that these people with power and influence were really fucking corrupt. In his previous life, Li Zongjie had already been crowned with the name of Evil Lord. His status was revered, but he had never enjoyed such things. First, he didn't have time. Most of the time, he was immersed in this bitter cultivation. Secondly, he didn't have such thoughts. You people are all corrupt. While Li Zongjie was eating, he was complaining at the same time, causing Su Sha to stare at him in bewilderment. Currently, the alchemists who had already arrived had already started conversing with each other. However, there were only a few people who were actually eating. By the way, is there a lottery tonight? When will it start? How do I do it? Li Zongjie asked. Since Su Sha was one of the organizers of this banquet, she should be clear about the process. Why do you care about these unimportant things? If it's a lottery, everyone's invitation card has a string of numbers. When the banquet starts, the number will be drawn. If it matches your number, then you'll win the lottery, Su Sha said. Looking at Li Zongjie's serious face, she even suspected that Li Zongjie had specially come for this lottery. We still have to wait so long. Then, do you know where the prize is now? Li Zongjie continued to ask. If it wasn't for the prize of the 6th grade medicinal herb, Li Zongjie wouldn't have come here so easily and wasted so much time. You actually have ideas about the prize. Su Sha instantly understood Li Zongjie's idea. Unfortunately, I don't know where the prize is now. However, it should be in a secret place in the Myriad Tea Mountain Villa, Su Sha said. Then forget it. Li Zongjie continued to look for other delicacies on the table, some that he had never seen before. In the courtyard, there was a dazzling array of exquisite pastries. Anyone who saw it couldn't help but stop to take a bite or two. At this moment, a group of people gathered around and discussed. The more famous you are, the more people will gather around you. The young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Pei Si, was in such a situation. Even the managers of the 3 largest herbal trading companies in the city had gathered around Pei Si to discuss this matter. They wanted to have some business exchanges. It should be known that the status of these managers was even higher than the patriarchs of the 4 great clans. The 4 major clans were only the clans within the Sacred Flame Royal City. However, these herbal trading companies covered the entire Sacred Flame Royal City. Behind Pei Si stood a tall and well-built man. His face appeared somewhat immature, but his large fists made it hard for one to believe that this person belonged to the friendly group. Pei Si was like a fish in water when interacting with these high-level people. However, when Pei Si saw the figure in front of the long table, the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Apart from showing his face and boosting the reputation of the Longevity Pavilion, his motive for coming here today was to exchange blows with this guy and see if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Just as Li Zongjie was calmly looking for things that he had never seen before, 2 people walked towards him. This must be Li Zongjie, the disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Pei Si smiled and walked towards Li Zongjie. However, Li Zongjie's back was facing Pei Si, and he was eating the fruit plate in his hand. He didn't pay attention to the person who spoke. The smile on Pei Si's face gradually stiffened. Then he cleared his throat. Excuse me, are you Li Zongjie? I heard you. If you have something to say, say it. If not, scram. What are you mumbling about behind my back? Li Zongjie turned around and looked at Pei Si. He looked impatient. At the same time, his voice wasn't soft. Those who were slightly closer to him could hear him clearly. After hearing this, Pei Si's expression became even more awkward. It wasn't right for him to leave, but it wasn't right for him to continue the conversation either. The other party was clearly not giving him any face. If he continued to force the conversation, the other party might become even worse. The surrounding people were also pointing and gossiping. The young pavilion master of the longevity pavilion, Pei Si, was actually using such an attitude to talk to a young man. Moreover, the young man didn't seem to be giving him any face at all. It was as if he would rather focus on eating the chicken wings in his hand than talk to Pei Si. He was really as difficult to deal with as the rumors said. At this moment, the smile on Pei Si's face had gradually faded. In the end, he became extremely serious. The tall, burly man behind Pei Si also rushed forward. "How dare you be disrespectful to the young pavilion master?" The burly man raised his palm. A terrifying gust of wind was stirred up between his palms. Under this gust of wind, the terrifying palm aura was directed towards Li Zongjio's face. Pei Si naturally saw this, but he didn't say anything to stop it. "Ah!" The burly man screamed in pain. Then he saw that there were 2 chopsticks stuck in his palm. Pei Si's eyes shone with a bright light. The burly man behind him was well trained in martial arts. Just his physical strength alone was close to that of a Yuan monarch elite. How could ordinary chopsticks penetrate his skin? Now, the 2 chopsticks had not only penetrated the back of his hand, but they had also directly sealed 2 acupoints. An outsider naturally wouldn't be able to see this. However, once the acupoints were sealed, if the body couldn't continue to circulate qi, it would directly cause the heart and lungs to explode. This move is really ruthless. The burly man also felt a sharp pain. He immediately used his other hand to slap the chopsticks away. Pa! Chapter 647. Shinto, this is 10,000 T Villa. Don't mess around. Back off. Pei Si walked up to Shinto and slapped him on the back. That vigorous palm energy instantly spread throughout Shinto's body. Pfft. Shinto spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the expression on his face was a little more relaxed. Otherwise, the chaotic energy in his body would have been enough to shatter his body. There was a hint of viciousness in his eyes as he stared at Li Zongjio in front of him. Li Zongjio had attacked so quickly that even Shinto didn't see it clearly. After that, he felt a sharp pain in his palm. If the young pavilion master hadn't intervened, the uncomfortable feeling in his body wouldn't have gone away. At this moment, Shinto also backed off. Pei Si said to Li Zongjio with a fake smile on his face. He also seemed very embarrassed. "I'm really sorry. This servant of mine is a little impulsive. Brotherly, please give me some face and don't blame him." Li Zongjio sized Pei Si up. "You're so young. Why is there something wrong with your brain? Who's your brother? Do you think I'll give you face just because you say so?" It was obvious that this was another idiot who felt very good about himself that had appeared in front of Li Zongjio. "And that fatty just now. Don't leave after the banquet ends." Li Zongjio pointed at Shinto as if to say that if it wasn't for the fact that the occasion wasn't suitable, they might have already started a fight. However, Shinto didn't even care about getting angry. Instead, he looked at his young pavilion master with great concern. This was something that had never happened in history. Given the young pavilion master's status, even the princes of the imperial court would have to leave their seats and come forward to greet him. However, Li Zongjio had actually ignored Pei Si completely. "Li Zongjio, let me introduce myself. I am the young pavilion master of the longevity pavilion, Pei Si." Pei Si comforted herself in her heart. This Li Zongjio might not know her identity, so it was best to come clean with Li Zongjio. Once he knew who she was, he would naturally know how powerful she was. What about the young pavilion master? So what if he's the young pavilion master? Even if your pavilion master is here, he can forget about leaving after beating someone up today. Another voice sounded from the crowd. The surrounding people who were watching the show were all shocked. There were people who didn't care about their lives every year, but there were a lot of them today. Especially after the other party had registered his number, he still dared to face the challenge. It had to be said that he was a real man. Kuan Erasher walked out from the crowd with a large plate of food in his hands. At this moment, He didn't have the slightest scruple, as he swaggered in front of Li Zongjiu, to humiliate Pei Si together. Although Kuan Erasure came from Kuan Castle, he didn't know much about the Longevity Pavilion. He thought that this guy was just a young master from some family, and wasn't worth much at all. Therefore, he naturally stood on Li Zongjiu's side. The surrounding onlookers were extremely shocked as they looked at the scene before them. They were all pointing at Lan Kuan, and their faces were filled with disbelief. When Kuan Erasure spoke, it was obvious that he was looking down on the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. Even Li Zongjiu was looking at Kuan Erasure with a face of admiration. This guy was pretty awesome. He even dared to look down on the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. Kuan Arashi's level of acting tough was even higher than Li Zongjiu's. He was risking his life to act tough. You're not bad. You're even more ruthless than me. Good job. Li Zongjiu patted Kuan Arashi's shoulder and gave Kuan Erasure a thumbs up. Kuan Erasure wasn't too sure about the situation at the moment. However, when he heard Li Zongjiu's praise, he couldn't help but feel pleased. This made Kuan Erasure feel even more confident. Hee young man, you've got guts. Not only did you look down on the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, you even dared to mock the pavilion master. Young and promising. Young and frivolous. 2 more people walked out. This person obviously wasn't here to help them out. He was here to add fuel to the fire and fan the flames. This person's appearance was obviously to incite the conflict between the 2 sides. I was wondering who it was. So it's Elder Song Chu of the Spirit Valley sect. Elder Song Chu's words are sharp and his eyes are sharp. Pei Si said loudly. He wasn't afraid at all when facing an elder from the Spirit Valley sect. However, when facing people like Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erasure, who didn't play by the rules, he was indeed a little overwhelmed. Elder Song Chu of the Spirit Valley sect. That's Nantian Pil King. Who would have thought that these 2 important figures would actually appear here as well? Tonight's exchange meeting was obviously not ordinary. With so many heavyweights here, it seemed like the influence of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had increased by quite a bit. Otherwise, these alchemists, who had a transcendent status in the Jianghu, would not have given them so much face, and specially sent such heavyweights here. You're not qualified to flatter me. It's not your turn to settle the score today. Boy, you must be Li Zongjiu. Song Chu directly pushed Pei Si aside. After reprimanding Pei Si, he looked at Li Zongjiu. His eyes were obviously filled with provocation. Li Zongjiu was rumored to be a god. Therefore, Song Chu really wanted to experience it. You're just a teenager. Can you really turn the world upside down? Therefore, Song Chu also wanted to test Li Zongjiu's skill. However, Nantian Pil King also stepped forward and hinted at Song Chu. The most important thing now was to stall for time, so that the Black Mountain Sword King could have enough time to rescue Elder Lu Wenshan. Therefore, there was no need to force Li Zongjiu. Where did you come from, old thing? Why are you shouting at my boss? Kuan Erasure shouted. The 2 people in front of him were obviously here to cause trouble. Moreover, the aura on their bodies was extremely sharp, causing Lan Kuan to involuntarily feel a wave of pressure. Noisy, it's not your turn to speak here. Song Chu's eyes were like lightning. In an instant, a tyrannical aura swept towards Kuan Erasure. This aura whistled. Before it swept in front of Kuan Erasure already felt like he was going to be blown away. However, before Kuan Erasure could run away, he saw Li Zongjiu blocking in front of him. Suddenly, the sharp aura in front of him disappeared. You're old, so don't get angry easily. Otherwise, your blood vessels will burst. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Chapter 648. Li Zongjiu's words sounded like he was trying to persuade Song Chu, but in fact, he was mocking Song Chu for being too old. Song Chu shouldn't be so hot-blooded. Li Zongjiu was too embarrassed to argue with him. Song Chu was not as easy to deal with as a young man. Song Chu was instantly enraged. He was about to explode on the spot. When he was in Spirit Valley sect, every disciple who saw him would lower their head and speak softly and respectfully to him. But now, Li Zongjiu was so arrogant and even mocked him. This made Song Chu even angrier and unhappy. He had never seen such a bold person. It seems that the elders in your family did not teach you what the order of seniority is. Song Chu said coldly. Nantian Pilking did not dare to step forward to stop Song Chu. One should know that Song Chu's status was enough to look down on him. Nantian Pilking. Song Chu was just giving him face. If Nantian Pilking did not give him face, he would not be able to talk to Song Chu. After all, Song Chu was a real 6th grade alchemist. He come up here. I'll tell you what the elders in my family taught me. Li Zhongjiu smiled at Song Chu, and then put the tray back on the table. The smile on Li Zhongjiu's face also revealed a trace of chilliness, causing people to feel a sense of panic after seeing it. What an arrogant person! Pei Si, who was watching the confrontation between Li Zhongjiu and Song Chu, thought that Li Zhongjiu did not even flinch in the face of Song Chu's oppression. At this moment, he even directly provoked Song Chu, and asked Song Chu to step forward. This was the beginning of the fight. Song Chu, of course, was not afraid at all. Could it be that this kid wanted to fight with him? Did he really think that a 6th grade alchemist's flame was used to cook rice? Immediately, Song Chu's aura shook. The surrounding onlookers were also looking at this scene. No one would have thought that Elder Song Chu from the Spirit Valley sect would actually make things difficult for these two brats. Furthermore, it seemed like the two of them were not afraid of Elder Song Chu at all. The two of you are going to have a fight in Tea Mountain Villa. Finally, someone jumped out to smooth things over. If he did not appear, these two people would probably have a fight. After all, in this situation, neither of them was to give in to the other. Naturally, there was no way to end to it. If one of them didn't die, then it wouldn't end. If they started fighting, then it would be hard to say. But before they started fighting, there was still hope. The chief elder Su, the vigorous Yuan power, also gradually suppressed the chaotic aura in the surroundings. Although Su Hong's alchemy cultivation was not as good as Song Chu, he was still the chief elder of Heavenly Pill Pavilion. His cultivation was not weak either. Most importantly, Elder Su Hong represented the Shengyan dynasty. Therefore, Song Chu and the rest did not dare to not give him face. Even the entire Spirit Valley sect was nothing in front of the Shengyan dynasty. Both of you, please calm down. Can you give me face? Su Hong said. This sentence again. Pei Si sneered in his heart. He did not even give face to me, the young pavilion master. Do you think he will give face to you, an old man? All right, I'll give you face. I'll settle the score with him after this. Li Zhongjiu said directly. These words made Song Chu explode on the spot. This kid is too arrogant. He'll settle the score with me after this. Very well, Li Zhongjiu. After today, your name will be removed from Royal City. Song Chu said fiercely. Then he turned around to leave. Su Hong heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. However, in the blink of an eye, he saw Li Zhongjiu throwing out something in his hand. Pa! The cake made by the chef specially invited from Sea Return City, smashed into the back of the head of the person holding Song Chu. The entire cake was stuck on Song Chu's head. In an instant, the atmosphere became quiet. When Pei Si saw this scene, she saw Song Chu's expression changing constantly. At the beginning, Song Chu was a little surprised, but he quickly came to his senses. Li Zhongjiu had thrown something at the back of Song Chu's head. His face instantly became extremely gloomy. Su Hong saw this scene, and looked at Li Zhongjiu. He could not understand why Li Zhongjiu would do such a thing. You saw it for yourself. He didn't give me face. Li Zhongjiu waved his hand helplessly. It was not that he didn't give face. Generally speaking, Li Zhongjiu rarely gave face to others. Su Hong had previously appreciated Li Zhongjiu, so Li Zhongjiu naturally wouldn't embarrass Su Hong in front of so many people. However, now it seemed that Song Chu was unrelenting. Since he had said such harsh words, how could Li Zhongjiu let him off? You're courting death. Song Chu flew into a rage. His hair seemed to burn with a terrifying light. The fire instantly ignited his white hair, making him look like a burning wooden stake. He turned around and glared at Li Zhongjiu in front of him. He couldn't wait to kill Li Zhongjiu at this moment. Prince Morong has arrived. A small eunuch's voice pierced through the sky, sharp and ear-piercing. When the surrounding crowd heard this, they all stood on both sides. Prince Morong, that was Morong Yunjan. As an event organized by the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, they naturally had to invite some heavyweight figures. In any case, they could be considered as holding the fort. Otherwise, it would naturally be meaningless for a group of little brats to be below. With heavyweight guests, it was naturally equivalent to having a core. Song Chu, who was about to fly into a rage, couldn't help but be startled at this moment. If he didn't give face to Su Hong, it wouldn't matter. After all, Su Hong might be replaced soon. To put it bluntly, Su Hong couldn't represent the entire Heavenly Pill Pavilion. After all, he was only an elder. However, Prince Morong was different. Not to mention Prince Morong's status, just his influence in the Xingyan dynasty was enough to make Song Chu restrain his temper. He didn't dare to act recklessly. He could ignore other people's faces, but he couldn't ignore Prince Morong's face. Song Chu was very clear about this point. "Welcome, Your Highness." Su Hong took the lead and walked to the front, facing Prince Morong's direction. The rest of the people followed suit. "Welcome, Your Highness." Chapter 649. Elder Su. The Heavenly Pill Pavilion has indeed lived up to the expectations of the dynasty. Today's glorious scene has truly opened my eyes. Morong Wang stepped forward and said. Su Hong could only smile awkwardly. "Fortunately, you came early. If you came a little later, there would probably be a river of blood here. If the two of them were to fight, who knows what the situation would be like." "Elder Song Chu, why didn't you inform me that you were coming? You've really surprised me." When Morong Wang saw Song Chu, he also went forward to greet him. Song Chu's face was originally filled with murderous intent, but at this moment, he gradually withdrew it. If he accidentally vented his hatred on Morong Wang, he would be in trouble today. Although Morong Yunjan's strength was ordinary, his identity was special. He was a prince of the Xingyan dynasty. If he offended him, he could just go to the Emperor Xingyan and say something bad about him. Then he would be taken away immediately. "Greetings, Morong Wang," Song Chu said with a fake smile. Although he was smiling, he was still thinking about how to torture Li Zongjio. When Old Black returned, he would definitely cripple Li Zongjio and torture him ruthlessly. He would make Li Zongjio suffer a fate worse than death. "Elder Song, there's no need to be so polite. Since everyone is here, let's start the banquet. Come, Elder Song, we haven't seen each other for a long time. We should have a good chat." Morong Wang stepped forward and held Song Chu's hand enthusiastically. When he passed by Pei Si, he was slightly surprised. Then he looked at him with a look of realization. This must be the young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Pei Si. "You indeed have your father's heroic spirit." When Morong Wang saw Pei Si, he spoke up. Morong Yunjan's eyes were sharp. With just a glance, he took away the two heavyweights present. Of course, there was also Pill King Nantian. He also took care of them all. At this moment, the tense atmosphere from before had also been completely erased. So at this moment, Li Zongjio didn't continue to pursue the matter. Anyway, throwing a cake over just now could be considered as teaching the other party a lesson. The atmosphere at the scene gradually dissipated. As Morong Wang left with the other two, Su Hong heaved a sigh of relief. He glanced at Li Zongjio in annoyance. He was truly doomed by Li Zongjio's personality. You should be more careful." Su Hong shook his head and said. He had also heard about Li Zongjio's matter. These people were obviously targeting Li Zongjio, so it was impossible for him to directly make Li Zongjio submit to them. After all, Su Hong was still biased towards Li Zongjio. From the beginning, he had been very optimistic about Li Zongjio. To be able to kill his enemy in the Heavenly Dawn medicine manner, through a duel in the arena, he had to be able to do so. From then on, Su Hong already knew that Li Zongjio was definitely a ruthless person. "He provoked me." Li Zongjio also expressed his helplessness. It was rare for him to make peace like this. He had already given Su Hong a lot of face. However, since Su Hong didn't give him face, he couldn't blame Li Zongjio. After that, Su Hong also went to host the banquet. There were still many things to arrange. "This time, you really stole the limelight." Li Zongjio gave Kuan Erishur a thumbs up. Long Kuan, on the other hand, felt a little strange. "How could it be me? Don't you know? You just humiliated the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. I estimate that tonight, your name will start to spread through the streets and alleys. Li Zongjie said. Pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion? This name sounds familiar. Kuan Erishur said with a frown. Seeing that Li Zongjie wanted to praise him again and again, he felt a little anxious in his heart. There must be a problem. Wait, Longevity Pavilion, Pavilion Master. Damn. Why do I remember that there is a Pavilion Master who is a grade 7 alchemist? Kuan Erishur immediately looked at Li Zongjie with an inquiring gaze. He wanted to get accurate information from Li Zongjie. Congratulations. Li Zongjie patted Kuan Arashi's shoulder. Damn, did I just humiliate a grade 7 alchemist? Kuan Erishur suddenly opened his mouth wide. This seemed to be different from the scene he had imagined. Originally, he should have stood behind Li Zongjie and added a little stab. But now he actually encountered such a situation. When he spoke, how could he directly bring Li Zongjie's father into the conversation? Who knew that the other party's father was actually a grade 7 alchemist? The reason why the Longevity Pavilion was superior to other alchemy giants was precisely because of the existence of a grade 7 alchemist. Being able to break through to the level of a grade 7 alchemist was also a kind of another realm and level. It was already on a different level from the people below. Now Kuan Erishur could be considered to be famous. According to this, Kuan Erishur should be the first person who dared to ignore the pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion. Therefore, now Kuan Arashi's heart was a little worried. It's fine, don't worry. Li Zongjie patted Kuan Arashi's shoulder and said, It's really fine? Really, you can rest assured and eat tonight. You must eat until you are full. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? Li Zongjie teased. Kuan Arashi's face suddenly turned ashen. Such a tragic situation. Kuan Arashi's future days would be very difficult. Li Zongjie's gaze was also fixed on Morong Yunjan. Li Zongjie naturally had to pay attention to Morong Yunjan, who had suddenly appeared to cause trouble. Now, it seemed that Morong Yunjan had not learned his lesson after the last time. If Morong Yunjan did not know what was good for him, and wanted to be enemies with Li Zongjie, then Li Zongjie would not mind having an extra head in his hands. Young master, please have some tea. This is picturesque landscape, one of the 7 famous teas. Just when Li Zongjie was teasing Kuan Erishur, a soft voice sounded beside him. Li Zongjie turned around and saw that it was the maid he had saved from Xiao Tian's. As for her name, Li Zongjie could not remember it. Oh, it's you. Li Zongjie saw Xiao Dai appear. Obviously, Xiao Dai did not dare to believe that Li Zongjie would let her go just like that. Therefore, Xiao Dai admired Li Zongjie even more in her heart. She even started to admire him from the bottom of her heart. This tea is quite fragrant. The banquet was still going on. Although the disturbance was not small and caused quite a stir, now more people were discussing it in private. At the same time, they also kept a respectful distance from Li Zongjie. However, Li Zongjie did not care about it. At this moment, on the Autumn Water Avenue, a figure carrying a long sword welcomed. His entire body was covered in a black robe. When he arrived in front of the manor's door, he unsheathed the sword on his back. Chapter 650. The black longsword was in his hand. The corners of the Black Mountain Sword King's mouth curled into a disdainful sneer. Then with a leap, he flew directly into the house. For the Black Mountain Sword King, entering such a place was basically like entering a place with no one around. The defense is so lax. There's no challenge at all. I'd like to see what kind of formation you have in your house. Just as the Black Mountain Sword King finished speaking, he immediately felt a thick white mist gushing out in front of him. Boom! The white mist quickly flew over like a giant beast, opening its mouth and swallowing the Black Mountain Sword King. The Black Mountain Sword King stood in place like a towering mountain, facing the white mist that was surging in from all directions. His face did not show the slightest bit of surprise or any fluctuation. Even though he was standing there calmly, the invisible aura had already gradually suppressed the surrounding aura. Insignificant skill break, the Black Mountain Sword King growled. The sword chi in his hand instantly vibrated. As the longsword whistled, a terrifying aura descended and instantly split the sea of white mist into two halves. Boom! The white mist instantly retreated. The Black Mountain Sword King's figure still stood in place without moving. In a corner of the courtyard, a primordial stone engraved with a Yuan rune formation was easily turned into powder. Awa! A figure appeared in front of the Black Mountain Sword Monarch. When he saw the Howling Moon Wolf King appear, the Black Mountain Sword Monarch's eyes flickered with a hint of contempt. So it's just a little wolf. I was wondering how many years of cultivation you had. Give me your life. The Black Mountain Sword King flicked his wrist and kept the long sword in his hand. His figure also suddenly rushed toward the Howling Moon Wolf King. In an instant, a terrifying tremor was set off in the surrounding area. In the eyes of the Black Mountain Sword King, there seemed to be an earth-shattering catastrophe appearing in front of him. As the terrifying power spread, it attacked the Black Mountain Sword King. Illusion. How could such a terrifying scene appear in the Sacred Flame Imperial City? Could it be that the young man in front of him was so tender that he was able to withstand the lava from the volcano? The Black Mountain Sword King could not believe it. However, as the magma fell, the Black Mountain Sword King also realized that something was wrong. It seemed that the aura hidden in the magma was not simple. It was very real. The Black Mountain Sword King finally took a step back. Sizzle! A few drops of lava landed on the Black Mountain Sword King's body and immediately penetrated his clothes. This power was actually real. Roar! The Howling Moon Wolf King suddenly split into two and charged at the Black Mountain Sword King. One of the terrifying movements was a spiritual doppelganger. They attacked the Black Mountain Sword King at the same time. The Black Mountain Sword Monarch slapped his sword, and two terrifying rays of light were immediately released from the sword, rushing towards the Howling Moon Wolf King. However, the power of the formation did not weaken. At this moment, the world seemed to be spinning, and the Black Mountain Sword King was trapped in the formation. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Since you like to use these crooked methods, let me show you what real power is. Dark Demon Tiger, show yourself. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately summoned his original spirit. It was a darkness demon tiger. Its entire body was pitch black, and its body was nearly 30 feet long. In addition, the lines on its forehead were white, which added a chill to the dark night. The two doppelganger of the Howling Moon Wolf King tore apart the light and rushed towards the Black Mountain Sword King, wanting to pounce on him. As for this meta beast, it was extremely powerful. Even if the enemy was strong, in the face of a life and death crisis, it could not afford to be so relaxed. It had to go all out. Boom! The thick claws of the dark demon tiger slammed the Howling Moon Wolf King to the ground with a loud bang. The Howling Moon Wolf King's body was immediately sent flying. The other mental energy doppelganger was also smashed to pieces by the dark demon tiger's tail. Facing the Howling Moon Wolf King, the dark demon tiger could basically kill it in a second. It could be said that it did not take the Howling Moon Wolf King seriously. In addition, the surrounding Yuan inscription formation was on the verge of collapse under the Black Mountain Sword King's indiscriminate bombardment. After all, the power of a Sword King was definitely not undeserved. The dark demon tiger wanted to continue to injure the Howling Moon Wolf King, but it found that the Howling Moon Wolf King's body had shrunk and was carried away by someone. The dark demon tiger immediately opened its mouth and shot a ray of dark light at the shadow fox. Boom! The shadow fox was sent flying, but it was wearing an inner armor. In addition, it had recently made a breakthrough in cultivation, so it was able to block the attack. It gritted its teeth and persevered, taking the Howling Moon Wolf King and flipping over the wall. As the original spirit of the Black Mountain Sword King, the dark demon tiger could not be too far away from the Black Mountain Sword King, so it could only watch the shadow fox take the Howling Moon Wolf King away. But the Yuan inscription formation was about to be dismantled by the Black Mountain Sword King. The Black Mountain Sword King did not continue to pursue. With a sweep of his mind power, he immediately found Lu Wenshan, who was locked in the stable. At this time, Lu Wenshan had been nervous for the whole day. He did not dare to let go of the primordial stone. If it fell to the ground, his stomach might be crushed. And at this time, Lu Wenshan did not have enough mind power to force the thing out of his body, so he could only hold on to the primordial stone, not daring to let go. There was a series of tremors outside, and then the Black Mountain Sword King rushed into the stable. Elder Lu. The Black Mountain Sword King smashed the stable in front of him. Lu Wenshan, who was hiding inside, was exposed. When Lu Wenshan saw that the stable he had lived in for several days had collapsed, he suddenly became nervous. Fuck, what do you want to do? Lu Wenshan saw the Black Mountain Sword King, and suddenly became nervous. After being imprisoned for so many days and being beaten for so long, it was inevitable that he was a little panicked. His mental state was obviously a little wrong. To be able to turn a 6th grade alchemist into this in such a short time, Li Zongjio's ability was really not small. Elder Lu, I'm here to save you. Fuck off. Who wants you to save me? Get out of here. Lu Wenshan pointed at the Black Mountain Sword King and said rudely, Save him? If there was even the slightest movement, maybe this person would be gone. So Lu Wenshan was now very nervous. Chapter 651. The Black Mountain Sword King was a little dumbfounded by Lu Wenshan's scolding. Had Lu Wenshan become stupid after being locked up here? But after all, Lu Wenshan was a genius who had the opportunity to break through to become a grade 6 alchemist. Perhaps the Black Mountain Sword King would have to rely on Lu Wenshan in the future. Previously, when he cooperated with Song Chu, he watched Song Chu step by step. On this road, the two could be said to have lived and died together, so there was now such a deep friendship. If the Black Mountain Sword King wanted to refine any elixir, he only needed to find the medicinal herbs. Of course, at the Black Mountain Sword King's level, the medicinal herbs were very rare, let alone the elixir. It was not easy to gather the medicinal herbs for the elixir. Knowing another grade 6 alchemist was naturally a good thing for the Black Mountain Sword King. It was also because of the importance of Lu Wenshan that the Spirit Valley sect sent 2 masters, Song Chu and the Black Mountain Sword King, to come. Elder Lu, what's wrong with you? Wake up, I'm Black Mountain. The Black Mountain Sword Monarch said in a deep voice. At the same time, a tyrannical Yuan force surged towards Lu Wenshan's body to help him recover. With the influx of Yuan Qi, Lu Wenshan calmed down a little. Black Mountain Sword King? You don't save me. I've been set up by that boy. Once I leave here, I'll definitely die. After Lu Wenshan woke up, he immediately said to the Black Mountain Sword King. If the Black Mountain Sword King came forward and took him away, he was afraid that he would directly die as soon as he left White Deer Manor. Such a scene was naturally very tragic and tragic. Lu Wenshan did not want to die so inexplicably. At that time, he had seen Li Zongjio with his own eyes, so at this moment he absolutely would not take the risk. Elder Lu, that boy is sinister and cunning. Could it be that he's tricking you? Let me check for you. The Black Mountain Sword King said. After all, he was a Yuan King master. In this aspect there was no problem. He poured his origin energy into Lu Wenshan's body, and immediately circulated it around Lu Wenshan's body. However, he didn't find any movement or abnormalities. No, you don't know that guy's methods. That guy is a ruthless person. He definitely won't shoot without thinking. Lu Wenshan grabbed the Black Mountain Sword King's hand. Capturing that brat is the key. He had to personally remove it. Black Mountain Sword King, you must help me catch that brat. Only in this way can I survive. Only then can I be at ease. Looking at Lu Wenshan's panicked appearance, the Black Mountain Sword King's heart was filled with disdain. How could such a person claim to be a genius who could break through to the 6th grade alchemist in the future? It was really laughable. However, what the Black Mountain Sword King did not know was that before he met Li Zongjio, the Black Mountain Sword King did not know. With Lu Wenshan's temper, he was more arrogant than anyone else in the world. But now he looked like a frightened little lamb. People couldn't help but laugh at him. How could such a situation happen? It was really despicable. Elder Lu, don't worry. That brat can't escape. The Black Mountain Sword King comforted Lu Wenshan. Then with a wave of his hand, he chopped the back of Lu Wenshan's head and directly knocked him out. How troublesome, wasting so much of my time. The Black Mountain Sword King said impatiently. If it were an ordinary person, he would have slapped the Black Mountain Sword King's head and mouth away. How could he be so wishy-washy? Then, the Black Mountain Sword King was ready to carry Lu Wenshan. But his keen perception made the Black Mountain Sword King's eyes instantly become sharp. His gaze was fixed in the direction behind. Did you hurt Wolf Cub and Shadow Elder? A cold and angry voice rang out. Beside Do Linger, Du Liani was supporting Shadow Fox. Do Linger was also holding the Howling Moon Wolf King in her arms. Clearly, the battle just now had caused the two of them to suffer extremely serious injuries. Although Shadow Fox could be said to be holding on, and was in a conscious state, Do Linger was still holding on. But in fact, Shadow Fox's situation was much worse than Howling Moon Wolf King's. After all, Howling Moon Wolf King was a meta beast. Its resilience and vitality were extremely strong. As long as it was still breathing, it could recover by lying down and resting. But relatively speaking, this human's ability to recover and survive was not as strong as a meta beast's, but it would not die for the time being. Looking at the seriously injured person and wolf, Do Linger's heart naturally flew into a rage. In any case, they were her friends. But since you broke into the house that Do Linger needed to protect and injured her, then all the more she couldn't let you go. A bunch of death-seeking trash. The Black Mountain Sword King had been in the Jianghu for many years, and had killed countless people. If pressed, he would not show the slightest mercy, whether it was the old, the weak, women, widowed, or lonely. It was because of his heart of stone that he could live until now. A little girl actually dared to clamor in front of him and question him. The Black Mountain Sword King had enough reason to kill the intruder. He didn't even need to use a sword. The Black Mountain Sword King directly waved his palm. Although they were more than 10 meters apart, the domineering palm energy turned into a terrifying sword light. He actually wanted to kill everyone in one move. Whoosh! Do Linger took a step forward, and an oil paper umbrella-like object appeared in her hand. When the oil paper umbrella appeared, it immediately spun and released a terrifying brilliance that knocked away the sword light in front of them. Boom! The umbrella in Do Linger's hand whistled as she put it away again. She spun a circle and held it behind her back. She looked quite dashing when she looked at it. This umbrella is a little interesting. The Black Mountain Sword King looked at the umbrella in Do Linger's hand with a trace of surprise in his eyes. The light released by the paper umbrella had easily blocked his sword elemental energy. It was obvious that the material and power of the paper umbrella were not simple. It's a waste for such an interesting thing to fall into your hands. The Black Mountain Sword King put Lu Wenshan back on the ground. Suddenly, a large array of light appeared in his eyes. Boom! Tyrannical Yuan energy was released from his body. The area within 100 meters was filled with the Black Mountain Sword King's fierce aura. Teacher Du, take this and stay where you are. Do Linger took out a jade slip and handed it to Du Liani. Although Du Liani didn't know what it was, she could feel the vast power within the jade slip, and understood that it was not an ordinary thing. She looked at Do Linger, who was actually taking the initiative to rush towards the Black Mountain Sword King. The Black Mountain Sword King did not hesitate to draw his Black Mountain Sword, and slashed at Do Linger. Suddenly, a 3-meter-long sword energy burst out from the Black Mountain Sword, like a roaring beast. Chapter 652. In the face of this ferocious attack, Do Linger calmly opened the paper umbrella in her hand, and blocked in front of her. Boom! The sword chi blasted on Do Linger's paper umbrella. The umbrella was unscathed, and Do Linger, who was behind him, was also calm. She hid behind the umbrella, and easily blocked the attack without being disturbed in the slightest. Hegemony of the Black Slaughter. The Black Mountain Sword King leaped, and was already in front of Do Linger. This leap was just in time for Do Linger to receive the attack. He had already landed behind Do Linger, behind the paper umbrella. Do Linger's figure was undoubtedly exposed. In terms of combat experience, Do Linger was obviously far inferior to the Black Mountain Sword King. Another extremely powerful sword move fell directly toward Do Linger. Do Linger seemed to have known this would happen. She calmly turned the handle of the umbrella, and at the same time, turned her body, bringing the paper umbrella behind her. Just in time to catch the Black Mountain Sword King's sword. Boom! The terrifying sword chi vibrated, as if to directly send Do Ling flying. Do Ling held the paper umbrella in her hand and moved back half a meter. Countless strands of black sword origin wrapped around Do Ling's paper umbrella, trying to tear it apart. However, there was nowhere for it to go. Do Ling's strong defense kept it at bay. Spin! Do Ling slapped the handle of the paper umbrella in her hand, and suddenly the paper umbrella spun. The power attached to the paper umbrella spun several times, and then rushed toward the Black Mountain Sword King with an even more terrifying force. What? He didn't expect that the paper umbrella was not only indestructible, but also had the effect of bouncing back his move. This surprised the Black Mountain Sword King greatly. In the face of his sword move, it was naturally not difficult for him to dodge it. After easily dodging the attack, the Black Mountain Sword Monarch formed a series of hand seals and suddenly slapped the Black Mountain Sword with his palm. Suddenly, the Black Mountain Sword Monarch seemed to seal a power within it. As the Black Mountain Sword Monarch waved the sword, the Dark Demon Tiger was actually hidden within the sword aura and quickly blasted towards Do Ling. Do Ling still blocked with the paper umbrella. It looked a little monotonous, but it was very practical. You can be proud of being able to block 3 of my moves in a row. Boast all you want on the road to the netherworld. The Black Mountain Sword King stood in place, waiting for Do Ling to be smashed into pieces by his sword. The sword chi was still blocked by the paper umbrella. However, Do Ling suddenly felt the umbrella sink. It was as if something had crawled onto it. When Do Ling looked up, she saw a sharp tiger claw coming at her. Whoosh! Although Do Ling dodged in time, her face was still scratched by the sharp aura. Do Ling's Do Ling Do Ling's Do Ling's S's of Do Ling's awa. The Dark Demon Tiger landed on the ground, and the paper umbrella fell into the Black Mountain Sword King's hands. The Black Mountain Sword King sneered. Do Ling's figure was retreating, and there was a claw mark on her cheek. Do Ling couldn't help but touch it. His face had been cut open, and his fingers were stained with a bright red substance. That was blood. Do Ling saw the blood. She froze in place. Oh no, Do Ling seems to be scared of blood. Judging from Do Ling's performance, she seemed to be in a state where she couldn't touch blood. If she saw it, she might faint. Such a special attribute was really surprising. If the enemy knew about Do Ling's special attribute, he could directly cut himself in front of Do Ling, and Do Ling would faint. What's going on? Even I feel a chill. The Black Mountain Sword King held the paper umbrella in his hand. This paper umbrella looked very ordinary and unremarkable. It was just that the material was a little special. However, the Black Mountain Sword King's attention was no longer on the paper umbrella in his hand, but on Do Ling. The Dark Demon Tiger also lowered its body, as if it had smelled something dangerous. Therefore, it calmed down and stared ahead with great vigilance. Blood. Do Ling's eyes looked a little dull. When she opened her mouth, she felt that her throat was a little dry. Between the collision of her lips and teeth, there seemed to be a little movement. Kill. In an instant, Do Ling's eyes seemed to sharpen. Her eyes were filled with terror, and her originally pitch-black pupils were now suffused with a bright red color. It was the same as Li Zhongjio's evil soul eye. Although Li Zhongjio didn't use it much now, once it was used, it would be a killing move. However, Li Zhongjio's evil soul eye could control itself. However, Do Ling's eye skill seemed to require external conditions to trigger. Once it was triggered, the impact could not be controlled by Do Ling. Originally, Do Ling's aura was pure and gentle, like a piece of white paper. But at this moment, when Do Ling released her power, it was immediately like a piece of white paper dyed red with blood. Boom! Do Ling released a terrifying blood aura and rushed towards the Black Mountain Sword King in front of her. The Black Mountain Sword King was surprised. The Black Mountain Sword in his hand suddenly stabbed out, but Do Ling's figure appeared directly and caught the sword in his hand with both hands. What? The Black Mountain Sword King was shocked. With such speed, Do Ling's strength was at least 10 times stronger than before. The Dark Demon Tiger also leaped up at this moment and rushed towards Do Ling with a ferocious momentum. However, Dou Linger lifted her foot and kicked out. Bang! The dark demon tiger was sent flying by Dou Linger's kick. It howled and rolled on the ground. It couldn't get up for a long time. Although it was formed by the power of its original soul, it could still be injured. Damn it! The Black Mountain Sword King wanted to pull out his sword, but Dou Linger's wrists had already turned and directly clamped the sword in his hand. Bang! The Black Mountain Sword King was thrown into the air, and then smashed hard on the ground. Although the power was not great, it showed that Dou Linger's strength was above the Black Mountain Sword King's. In the face of Dou Linger's power, the Black Mountain Sword King could only suffer a setback. My sword! When he landed, the Black Mountain Sword King's hands loosened, and the sword was seized by Dou Linger. Chapter 653. 10,000 Tea Villa. At the banquet, there was also a process. Most of them were just compliments. After that, there were also some singing and dancing performances. Most of the time, these people of the same level communicated with each other. Li Zongjio and Kuan Erishur were eating and drinking at the side. At first, Kuan Erishur was still depressed about his own matter. After thinking about it, it was not a big deal. He did not know when they would come to find trouble with him, so there was no need to worry about it now. Therefore, Kuan Erishur was now eating freely. He did not look worried at all. Two young heroes. I am the manager of the 100 Medicine Pavilion, Feng Tingfei. Just as the two of them were eating, a voice rang out from behind them. After the incident just now, most of the people here were basically walking around Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio. Even the people within 5 meters of Li Zongjio and Li Zongjio were rarely seen. Therefore, when someone came to talk to them, they were even a little surprised. You are not afraid of trouble, but the name 100 Medicine Pavilion seems to have been heard somewhere. Kuan Erishur turned to look at the person who came. It was an elegant middle-aged man in his 40s. He seemed to be a relatively friendly person, giving people a sense of closeness. When Kuan Erishur heard the name 100 Medicine Pavilion, he also felt that it was familiar, but he did not know where he had heard it before. Then Kuan Erishur also remembered. Oh fuck, 100 Medicine Pavilion. The brand of 100 Medicine Pavilion is even older than the brand of 1000 Taste Herb Hall. Kuan Erishur patted his head and suddenly remembered. This was because in Kuan Castle, if a business wanted to enter, they must have absolute strength. Even 1000 Taste Herb Hall did not have the opportunity to enter Kuan Castle. But this 100 Medicine Pavilion had 3 stores. Kuan Erishur had seen it before. Indeed, this level was different. It's nothing. It's just that we started a little earlier, and we're lucky to catch up with the times. Feng Tingfei said with a smile. Among the 3 major herbal merchants, the strength of our 100 Medicine Pavilion still needs to improve. Why are you looking for us? Li Zongjio asked. Kuan Erishur was surprised for a long time, but he could not find any key points. If this went on, no one would know that he was being sold. I have heard of young hero Li's fame in alchemy. I have a good opportunity to show you your skills. At the same time, you can get a good harvest. Feng Tingfei said. A good harvest? Li Zongjio frowned. He naturally heard of the name of 100 Medicine Pavilion. As an alchemist, of course, he was familiar with these herbal merchants. Sometimes, these herbal merchants would recruit some alchemists and give them some VIP cards. With this VIP card, they could enjoy some discounts that ordinary people could not enjoy. Since young hero Li came to this banquet today, you must be here for the prize of the 6th grade herbs. Feng Tingfei's eyes were sharp. Someone with a temper like Li Zongjio wouldn't come to such an exchange. If he wasn't here to hug someone's leg, then he was here to look for benefits. He had been watching the two of them for a long time, and found that the two of them were just eating here. Obviously, they had eaten a lot, but their stomachs seemed to be bottomless, like a bottomless pit. They just kept eating and drinking. Of course, Feng Tingfei could have an accurate guess. In fact, it was because at the very beginning, he heard the conversation between Li Zongjio and Su Sha. He also knew that Li Zongjio's goal was the 6th grade herbs. It was because of this that Feng Tingfei stared at Li Zongjio. Your eavesdropping skills are good. If you have any tricks, just say it. Li Zongjio sneered. With his strong mental strength, if Li Zongjio wanted to, He could even recall the things that happened in the last 3 days. Some details of anything that he came into contact with. Some details that he did not notice. But as long as Li Zongjio came into contact with something, he could basically recall it. Therefore Li Zongjio recalled a little. In his memory, he saw this guy beside him when he was talking to Su Sha. Those who could come to this place today were not simple people. Moreover, the person in front of him was a high-ranking person of the 100 Medicine Pavilion. Since he was invited, he must have a certain level of ability to come to the 10,000 T Villa and participate in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion exchange. Therefore, even though this person appeared to be very amiable, so amiable that it could cause others to lower their guard, it was impossible for Li Zongjio to relax. He easily sensed that the person in front of him had impure intentions, playing tricks in front of Li Zongjio. If Li Zongjio was in a bad mood, it would not be strange for him to directly kill you. Therefore, when he stared at Feng Tingfei, his sharp eyes immediately made Feng Tingfei's heart tremble. It seemed like this young man was not as simple as he appeared to be. Originally, he looked for Li Zongjio because he thought that Li Zongjio still had some value before his death. After offending the Spirit Valley sect and the young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion, Li Zongjio and Su Sha were no different from dead people. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well make use of him. Don't worry. I have no evil intentions. We are just taking what we need. After some time, there will be an underground alchemist competition. If the participating alchemists can win, they will be able to obtain a large amount of precious medicinal ingredients. The lowest grade of medicinal ingredients is the 6th grade. A glint flashed across Li Zongjio's eyes as he listened. What competition is so good? Who is the organizer? Kuan Arisher asked. Feng Tingfei maintained a mysterious smile and kept looking at Li Zongjio. It seemed that Kuan Arashi's answer was not important. The main thing was Li Zongjio. After all, Li Zongjio was the imperial alchemist. As for Kuan Arisher, it seemed that he was just Li Zongjio's underling. If I am not wrong, it is the Dark Horse Elixir meeting, Li Zongjio said lightly. Feng Tingfei was slightly surprised when he heard Li Zongjio's words. He did not expect Li Zongjio to mention the Dark Horse Elixir meeting. Yes, it is the Dark Horse Elixir meeting. Since you have heard of it, I will say it directly. Our 100 Medicine Pavilion can give you a place. Even the medicinal ingredients you obtain in the Dark Horse Elixir meeting will belong to you. What we want is the mining rights of a mountain range after the competition, Feng Tingfei said. Kuan Arisher took a sip of the dark brown drink in his hand. What Dark Horse Elixir meeting? What mining rights? Chapter 654. Kuan Arisher came out of the small Kuan castle. In fact, he was not familiar with the outside world. The reason why he was familiar with the outside world was because he had some information about the Sacred Flame Royal City before coming here. However, Kuan Arisher had no way to know about the Dark Horse Pill meeting. So Kuan Arisher did not know what the two people were talking about. The Dark Horse Elixir Gathering is a kind of underground elixir gathering. However, not all alchemists can participate in it. Every year, the Dark Horse Elixir Gathering will release a specific quota. Only a few people who have obtained the quota can participate in it. In addition to the registration fee of the medicinal herbs used to participate in the competition, there are also regular mining rights for some medicinal herbs in the mountains. Feng Tingfei said. He did not directly explain the specific things. Anyway, this matter was not so simple. The history was very long. In fact, it was also because of the conflict of interests between the 3 herb merchants that narrowed the scope of the alchemists. At the same time, it was also a way for the alchemists to obtain more precious resources. It should be known that some alchemists were very arrogant. They were not willing to rely on some forces. In that case, they would lose a lot of freedom and gradually become alchemy slaves. Almost no one liked this kind of scene, so they would find some ways to earn the medicinal herbs needed for alchemy. The Dark Horse Pill meeting was such an extremely rare opportunity. You only need to get the quota. Each alchemist represented a 6th grade medicinal herb. If you beat others in the Dark Horse Pill meeting, you can get the other party's medicinal herbs. If you lose, you will naturally have nothing. If Li Zhongjiu could defeat 10 people, then he would be able to obtain 10 6th-grade medicinal herbs. Of course, if Li Zhongjiu participated, the medicinal herbs of the participation would be provided by the 100 Medicine Pavilion. Li Zhongjiu only needed to win. But all the medicinal herbs forces that participated would also determine the mining rights in the medicinal herbs mountain range in the future, according to the results of their alchemists. Otherwise, if they directly use force to compete, the losses would only be greater. This was why there was a Dark Horse Pill meeting. Every year, the Black Horse Pill gathering was held in Black Horse Town. The organizers were naturally these 3 major medicinal herb merchants. Other than them, there were also dozens of medicinal herb merchants of various sizes. The medicinal ingredients of the medicinal ingredient merchants were basically excavated from various places. They could not possibly fall from the sky. In order to compete for the mining rights, they would basically use the alchemists under their banner to engage in a bloody battle during this Dark Horse Pill gathering. While the alchemists were fighting, they were also obtaining their own benefits. Basically, it was a win-win relationship with these medicinal herbs merchants. Therefore, Feng Tingfei from the 100 Medicine Pavilion locked his gaze on Li Zhongjiu. In order to win in such a situation, one could not rely solely on one's cultivation. One needed courage and ferociousness. Only in this way could one win smoothly, and even have a chance to catch one's breath. He wouldn't be eliminated so quickly. Although the Dark Horse Pill convocation seemed good, it was actually very cruel. In front of the exclusive benefits of the alchemists, these alchemists would do anything to defeat you. In the end, they would even fight with their lives on the line. All kinds of things could happen. In the face of human nature, anything could happen. After listening to Feng Tengfei's explanation, Kuan Erisher suddenly understood and nodded. However, he always felt that this kind of thing seemed to be similar to the underground boxing competition. The only difference was that the boxers had become alchemists. The competition method had changed, but the nature was the same. If you want me to participate, I can. In addition to the conditions just now, I also want a 7th-grade medicinal herb. If you can help me find it, then I can consider participating. As for the mining rights, I promise it will be yours. Li Zhongjiu said lightly, since you took the initiative to come to me, then of course, I will take advantage of you. If I let you get away with it so easily, then I will not be Li Zhongjiu. Hearing Li Zhongjiu's exorbitant demand, he immediately opened his mouth and asked for 7th-grade medicinal ingredients. What kind of realm would a 7th-grade medicinal ingredient be at? Do you think it's a joke? A 7th-grade medicinal ingredient could not be used to refine a 7th-grade medicinal ingredient steadily, but it could help you refine a 6th-grade medicinal pill better. At the very least, it could enhance the success rate and the medicinal effect. Refining a 7th-grade medicinal pill. It was basically unimaginable. Although the pavilion master of Chongqing Pavilion had the strength of a 7th-grade alchemist, it was only because the pavilion master's cultivation had broken through the limit. The strength of the alchemy fire in his hand had also broken through, and there was hope for him to refine a 7th-grade medicinal pill. It didn't mean that the medicinal pills he usually refined were all 7th-grade medicinal pills. This realm was simply too hard to come by for an alchemist. A 7th-grade medicinal ingredient, although the price is not small, if you can help us win, then the price is not too high. Feng Tingfei said lightly. Li Zhongjiu listened and nodded. That's fine. When you're going, just let me know a few days in advance. Li Zhongjiu's tone sounded like he already had victory in his grasp. When the time came, he just needed to win the competition before he went. Feng Tengfei didn't mind, because based on the performance just now, Li Zhongjiu's attitude was already very friendly. Otherwise, the conversation wouldn't have been so casual. Maybe he would have been scolded directly when he just opened his mouth. Alright, this kid, come with us. He stopped Feng Tingfei. Originally, Feng Tingfei only wanted to find Li Zhongjiu. After all, the quota was not that simple. Those who could find the Dare to Die team among the alchemists were basically all fierce characters. Therefore, under the situation where the quota was fixed, They also needed to allocate the personnel to make them the most elite. The reason why they looked for Li Zongjie was that they wanted to try their luck. If there was a variable, how could they improve their situation if they were doing big business all the time? They had to take risks. But there's only one quota left. It's not easy to get. Although Feng Tingfei was in charge of this, the other quotas had already been chosen. Like this. Just pick one and I'll kill him. Then there will be a quota. Li Zongjie said lightly. Haha, what a big tone. I'm going to represent the 100 Medicine Pavilion in the Dark Horse Elixir Gathering. If you want this quota, just come and get it. Chapter 655. An arrogant voice sounded. Li Zongjie never thought that his luck would be so good that someone would give him a pillow just when he was about to doze off. It also saved Li Zongjie the trouble of searching everywhere. Feng Tingfei turned around and saw the person. His eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Mr. Lan, this matter. Feng Tingfei saw Mr. Lan and knew that things were not going well. Mr. Lan was the trump card of their 100 Medicine Pavilion. Mr. Lan was quite famous in the city. He was already at the peak of his hometown. Now that he had come to Monarch City, he had become the head of the 100 Medicine Pavilion. Since it was selling herbs, it was necessary to hire some alchemists to oversee it. This kind of full service was necessary. Seeing Mr. Lan come, Feng Tingfei did not know what Mr. Lan wanted to do. Manager Feng, since this kid wants to represent the 100 Medicine Pavilion, let me test his strength. Don't worry. I will only use 30% of my strength to compete with you. Mr. Lan seemed to be very confident. When he looked at Li Zongjie, there was a trace of provocation in his eyes. In addition, Li Zongjie also noticed that Mr. Lan's eyes seemed to be looking in the direction of Pei Si from Chongqing Pavilion from time to time. Li Zongjie was old and experienced. Naturally, he could tell that Mr. Lan wanted to attract the attention of Chongqing Pavilion. That was why he deliberately came to provoke them. Li Zongjie just humiliated Pei Si from Chongqing Pavilion and Song Chu from Spirit Valley sect in front of everyone. Originally, the two of them would never let Li Zongjie go. However, they were now chatting with Morong Wang and could not free themselves to deal with Li Zongjie. Therefore, they let Li Zongjie live peacefully until now. But for the others, if they could eliminate Li Zongjie at this moment, wouldn't they be able to gain the favor of Chongqing Pavilion and Spirit Valley sect? After all, he had helped them vent their anger, which was equivalent to expressing his goodwill. Therefore, many people couldn't hold back, but they didn't have a good opportunity to step forward. Most of the people who came here today were alchemists. After all, this was an exchange between alchemists. Now that it had begun, many alchemists had their eyes on Li Zongjie. They wanted to have some fun with Li Zongjie. Lan Qingshu's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked at the restless people around him who were basically saying, "Sigh, why didn't I make a move earlier?" Lan Qingshu was slightly pleased with himself. If he killed Li Zongjie, perhaps Pei Si of the Longevity Pavilion would have a good impression of him. When the time came, he might be able to get a job in the Longevity Pavilion. Whether it was the Longevity Pavilion or the Spirit Valley sect, they would only recruit some talented alchemists. They would not consider those who had reached the end of their road, because there were too many alchemists like them. In their eyes, these alchemists were born in the wild and were looked down upon. This Lan Qingshu really knows how to make use of the opportunity. He's going up directly in such a situation. He's obviously trying to curry favor with Longevity Pavilion. Lan Qingshu only has a few tricks up his sleeves. He's just lucky to obtain a wisp of Wanyang fire. What's so great about that? But that kid won't be able to talk back for long. I'm afraid it won't be so simple when facing Lan Qingshu. The people around were also discussing, but most of them weren't optimistic about Li Zongjie. Just a while ago, Li Zongjie's situation was basically dug out. His highest achievement was getting first place in the 3 Great Academies exchange competition. It was also because of this that he received the Imperial Alchemist Qualification Certificate. In addition, the highest grade of elixir that he refined was only a middle grade 5 elixir. Although the grade of the elixir wasn't low, but in a competition like that, the ingredients given out were basically of good quality. It had to be said that among the many alchemists present today, more than half of them had concocted level 5 middle medicinal pills before. Therefore, this wasn't a proud achievement, and could only be considered as ordinary. There were too many experts present. There were hidden dragons and crouching tigers. He has a spot, right? Li Zhongjiu ignored Lan Qingxiu. Do you think you have a spot just because you said so? Of course he had to ask Feng Tingfei. This made Lan Qingxiu furious. Was this brat doubting his right to speak? Was it that difficult for him, Lan Qingxiu, to obtain a spot in the Dark Horse Elixir gathering? How dare this kid look down on him? However, Lan Qingxiu wasn't angry. Perhaps this kid was good at provoking him like this. Feng Tingfei nodded. Mr. Lan is the chief alchemist of our 100 Medicine Hall. Of course you have the right. It's up to you whether you want to or not. Feng Tingfei's words gave Lan Qingxiu some comfort. At the very least, Feng Tingfei's words were still useful to Lan Qingxiu. He gave Lan Qingxiu enough face. Alright then you. After Li Zhongjiu confirmed that Lan Qingxiu was qualified, he agreed to compete with Lan Qingxiu. Where do we fight? Here. As he spoke, Li Zhongjiu took out the weapon in his hand. Thunder Slash Blade. The Thunder Slash Blade emitted a terrifying power of lightning. Lan Qingxiu and Lan Qingxiu's expressions changed when they saw the Thunder Slash Blade flashing with lightning. Hey, what are you trying to do? As alchemists, we have to compete with alchemists. Why are you using a blade? Lan Qingxiu was a little nervous when he saw Li Zhongjiu's actions. Was there something wrong with this guy's head? Why did he take out his weapon? Could it be that he thought he wanted to have a fight with him? Oh, then tell me. How do you want to compete? You can choose. Li Zhongjiu put away the Thunder Slash Blade in his hand. This Li Zhongjiu had attracted the attention of many people just now. This Li Zhongjiu was really a little too straightforward. Without saying a word, he directly attacked. Boss, why don't we just let it go? This guy seems pretty strong. Kuan Erisher couldn't help but say. Looking at the person in front of him, he felt a little guilty. After all, it was just a spot. There was no need to make such a big move. It was better to keep a low profile and talk about it slowly. This Dark Horse Elixir gathering is a trial for you. If you want to be famous, you have to go. Why don't you deal with this guy? Li Zhongjiu said sternly. No. You should do it. I'll hold the line for you. When Lan Qingxiu heard Li Zhongjiu's casual and disdainful attitude, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. It was as cold as the edge of a blade. In that case, let's have a fire battle on the Elixir platform. Chapter 656. Flying Roar. As a city guard, they naturally had to prepare some secret weapons. These weapons were usually kept secret. They would only be taken out when they were carrying out some special tasks. For example, the Flying Roar. It was one of Guan Shifei's secret weapons. Speaking of the Flying Roar, it was a powerful yuan weapon specially created by the Heavenly Workshop. It could track an enemy within a 20-mile radius, and was omnipotent. Once it aimed, it would lock onto the enemy, and would not rest until the enemy was dead. It would be difficult to escape its tracking even if the target soared into the sky. Furthermore, once the Flying Roar was unleashed, even a Yuan Monarch elite would be severely injured. Bring it! Guan Shifei waved his hand, and a two-wheeled war chariot was pushed out from the darkness. It looked like a cannon, but there was a fiery red arrowhead on top of it. Once the ignition was lit, it was considered to be activated. Very good. Xiao Han's eyes flashed coldly. At this moment, hundreds of people were lying in ambush, waiting for Li Zhongjiu and the others to arrive. Pei Si, who was about to leave, quietly arrived at the outskirts of the forest after receiving the news. Interesting. The commander of the Imperial Guards can actually summon city guards. There will be a good show tonight. Pei Si's eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. His gaze flickered slightly, as he immediately sensed two figures hiding in the distance. Song Chu and Nantian. These two old fellows are really sneaky. Obviously, many people had guessed that there would be an important show tonight. Therefore, they had not left early, and had come here based on the information they had received. Li Zhongjiu and Kuan Erisher did not let the crowd wait for long. He directly appeared in the middle of the wild forest. The Kuan Wing spear appeared in Kuan Arashi's hand. You people better leave first. I advise you not to die in vain. Lan Kuan spoke to the person hiding in the dark. Given the strength of these people, it would be difficult for them to escape the senses of the two of them. However, although Lan Kuan had already spoken out of his kindness, these people in front of him remained indifferent. Li Zongjio, tell us the truth. Did my son's death have anything to do with you? Xiao Han and the others walked out. Their leader Xiao Han also spoke. Today, Li Zongjio and Lan Kuan would die without a doubt. As for whether their corpses would be left intact, and whether they would be tortured in the end, it would depend on their own awareness. If their awareness was correct, and they were willing to tell the truth, then it would be easy to kill them with a single slash of the saber. However, if the two of them were unwilling to speak, they could not be blamed for being vicious and merciless. After surviving on the battlefield for so many years, they had already grasped some ruthless methods. If the two of them were unwilling to speak, they would not mind letting them have a taste of their methods. Are you talking about this? Li Zongjio directly threw out a cloth bag in his hand. Within the range of his mind power, there were at least 500 people lying in ambush within a radius of 100 meters. Li Zongjio was indeed worthy of being part of the army. He could easily summon so many people to help him. However, such an encirclement was nothing to Li Zongjio. A ball-shaped object rolled a few times on the ground. Although the night was dark, one could still vaguely see some bloodstains on the bag. In order to prevent an ambush, Guan Shifei also signaled for one of his men to go forward. The man urged his horse forward and came in front of the bag. When he opened the bag, he was stunned on the spot. When he regained his senses, he also directly threw out the bag in his hand. Oh my God! A round human head appeared in front of everyone's eyes. From Xiao Han's angle, he could just see the appearance of the human head at this moment. Wasn't this the head of his precious son? Although the hair was messy and the blood was smeared all over the face, Xiao Han could still recognize that this was his son in an instant. My son! Xiao Han suddenly screamed at the top of his lungs. With a leap, Xiao Han arrived in front of the head. The soldier who had carelessly tossed the head away also hurried to stand in front of Xiao Han. Sir, please forgive me. Get out of my sight. Xiao Han directly kicked the soldier away. The armor in front of his chest caved in, leaving a footprint. He flew back a few hundred meters and directly hit a big tree. Blood spurted out of his mouth, and his head tilted to one side. He was directly kicked to death. My son! Xiao Han held Xiao Tian's head in his arms and cried bitterly. At this moment, it seemed that even the heavens were moved by the deep affection between the father and son. There was actually such deep affection in it. Thunderclaps rumbled in the sky, lightning quickly surged across the sky, and a terrifying cold wind blew at the scene. 2 lines of tears flowed down Xiao Han's face. The disheveled hair on his head was fixed again. His scarlet eyes were fixed on Li Zongjio in front of him. Who ordered you to do this? Who is the mastermind behind this? Xiao Han stood up. In the fierce wind, his clothes and hair were also disheveled. At this moment, Xiao Han's body looked so frail and weak amidst the fierce winds. Although his body was thin and weak, there was bound to be a bloody storm that shook the heavens and the earth between the thunder and lightning. Don't yell and scream. Don't worry, no one is targeting you. I just want to kill. Li Zongjio waved his hand and said. And you don't have to be sad, because you can accompany him soon. Listening to Li Zongjio's words, he was too arrogant. Did he have hundreds of people, or did they have hundreds of people? The relationship between them and the enemy was still unclear. Very well. Don't worry, I, Xiao Han, will make sure your whole family is buried with my son. Kill them. At Xiao Han's command, a thunderclap sounded in the sky. The whole sky was filled with rolling thunder, as if it was a very good day to kill and vent one's anger. Kill. As soon as Guan Shifei gave the order, countless flames shot out from the treetops, bringing with them the sound of breaking wind. Kuan flash. Kuan Erasure shook the long spear in his hand. Suddenly, a terrifying force flew out like a bolt of lightning, directly shattering the arrows around him. Chapter 657. Li Zongjiu did not pay much attention to Su Sha's agitated state. Since the duel was about to begin, Li Zongjiu walked into the arena directly. He nodded at Su Hong, who walked over to Li Zongjiu and whispered, "You have to be careful of this person. The set sun flame is not ordinary." "Got it." Li Zongjiu replied nonchalantly. What set sun flame, or heavenly sun flame? Basically, Li Zongjiu did not care about them at all. How dare he play with fire in front of Li Zongjiu? Although Li Zongjiu wasn't born to play with fire, his experience in playing with fire from head to toe, from every strand of his hair, far exceeded that of his opponent. Lan Qingxiu, who was standing opposite him, looked as though he did not know what was good for him. After walking into the arena, he cupped his fists at the people around him, as though everyone was there to cheer for him. "Hee, everyone, I'll have to embarrass myself here," Lan Qingxiu said with a hypocritical smile. Naturally, the people around him were not happy with him either. After all, such a good opportunity to flatter Lan Qingxiu had been given to him. It was really upsetting. If they had gone up now, they might have been the one chosen by the Chongqing Pavilion. Now that such a good opportunity had been snatched away by this guy, and he was even jumping around in front of his eyes, he wanted to see just how capable he was. Everyone was waiting for Lan Qingxiu to make his move. Although Li Zongjiu's strength was nothing to be afraid of, he was not a fool. He might have some tricks up his sleeves. He might be able to kill Lan Qingxiu easily. Things like failing miserably at such a simple task were common occurrences. After showing off for a while, Lan Qingxiu looked at Li Zongjiu. "Don't worry. Tonight is just the beginning. You will have a very long and profound experience in this duel," Lan Qingxiu said with a cold look in his eyes. "Come on, I'll give you a chance. I'll let you make a move. I'm not an unreasonable person." Li Zongjiu flipped his wrist and hooked his finger at Lan Qingxiu. Lan Qingxiu's smile widened when he heard Li Zongjiu's words. This kid really knew how to play dumb. Lan Qingxiu wanted to see if Li Zongjiu would still be able to say the same thing when he tore Li Zongjiu into two. "One move? No, I only need half a move to kill you," Lan Qingxiu roared. He crossed his hands, as if he was holding a bowl. Then, there was a loud bang in his palms, and a powerful energy was rapidly gathering. Flames. The flame of the setting sun was like the radiance of the setting sun, causing the 10,000 T Mountain Manor to be illuminated at night. He looked at the fire of the setting sun in Lan Qingxiu's hand. Gradually, it became stronger and stronger, and the surrounding people also became nervous. Many people also felt a sense of pressure. This level of strength caused the surrounding people to feel a trace of surprise. Lan Qingxiu's control of the fire of the setting sun is getting stronger. What a powerful force. Did he find another wisp of the fire of the setting sun? I've seen the fire of the setting sun a few years ago, but it didn't give off such a strong pressure. The people below were discussing. Some were envious, some were jealous, and some were disdainful of the flame in Lan Qingxiu's hand. TSK, if it wasn't for the fire of the setting sun, he wouldn't be where he is today. If he has such a fortuitous encounter, he should have hidden it well. Lan Qingxiu is in such a hurry to pick it out. He doesn't know how to write the word Loki. No one was talking about Li Zongjiu anymore. When Lan Qingxiu took out the fire of the setting sun, no one believed that Li Zongjiu could survive. The elixir platform was not a place where one could simply talk his way out of it. Lan Qingxiu was ready to attack. The fire of the setting sun was condensed, and it was about to erupt. Boom! The terrifying residual sun fire immediately turned into a fireball. As the fireball whizzed through the air, it seemed to burn through space, and quickly arrived in front of Li Zongjiu. "Be careful!" Su Sha couldn't help but shout. The fire of the setting sun was already a terrifying force for Su Sha. If it was Su Sha facing the fire of the setting sun, she would definitely be defeated by this move. Seeing that Li Zongjiu was still standing at the same spot, Su Sha wanted to go up and push Li Zongjiu. Even Su Hong and the rest were staring at Li Zongjiu. A glint flashed across Pei Si's eyes. Everyone's eyes were immediately filled with astonishment. What? The audience below the platform were shocked. They didn't know what had just happened. It happened too fast, and they couldn't see clearly. One move is over. Li Zongjiu looked at Lan Qingxiu without the slightest bit of pity. He had already given Lan Qingxiu a chance. He had said that he would use one move, and that was that. Rise! Li Zongjiu raised his hand. Lan Qingxiu and the people around him didn't see any movement. However, there was a boom under Lan Qingxiu's feet, and a ball of fire appeared. My feet! Lan Qingxiu immediately felt a burning sensation. He even had the urge to chop off his feet. However, Lan Qingxiu didn't have time to do anything else. A strong burning sensation appeared in his heart and lungs. As an alchemist, Lan Qingxiu was very clear about the condition of his body. No. Lan Qingxiu immediately let out a long howl. This was the last sound he could make. After he roared, Lan Qingxiu's entire body exploded. Flames were released from his body like a meta beast, devouring Lan Qingxiu. Lan Qingxiu's body was instantly burned to ashes. In anyone's eyes, this was an extremely shocking scene. Lan Qingxiu's figure directly disappeared. All that was left was a storage ring and a flame. It seemed like he was trying to escape. Many people saw this wisp of flame. Residual sun flame. Immediately, some people's eyes were filled with desire. They were even ready to take action. However, Li Zongjiu reached out his hand and sucked the residual sun flame into his hand. An aura of an expert was released from his body. He looked down at the people below. In their eyes, other than fear and shock, there was also a trace of fear hidden in the depths of their hearts. Su Sha opened her cherry mouth wide. Looking at the scene in front of her, she couldn't regain her senses. Sigh, I knew it. It's like this again. Chapter 658. Lan Kuan's eyes were already wide open. However, he still couldn't figure out how Li Zongjiu had managed to end the battle so quickly. This caused the audience below the stage to be dumbfounded. Some of them were even looking around. They thought that Lan Qingxiu had used some kind of concealment technique to hide himself, which was why they could not see him clearly. It should be some kind of secret technique. How could such a living person disappear just like that? What? Su Hong and the rest were shocked when they saw what happened. A cold light flashed in Song Chu's eyes. Although Li Zongjiu's attack was very subtle, Song Chu could still clearly feel the appearance of a wave of energy. He immediately knew that Li Zongjiu's body also had a kind of yuan fire. It seems like you are relying on this wisp of yuan fire. Song Chu's eyes gradually relaxed. In his opinion, he already knew Li Zongjiu's trump card. In that case, Li Zongjiu's words were not mysterious at all. It would be easy for him to destroy it. Pil King Nantian, who was beside him, looked at Li Zongjiu and became even more vigilant. In fact, Pil King Nantian had fought with Li Zongjiu before. In the end, he lost miserably and had no choice but to leave Li Zongjiu's house. Now Li Zongjiu seemed to have a new trick up his sleeve. This made Pil King Nantian even more vigilant. He actually has a yuan fire. It seems like Li Zongjiu's luck is not ordinary. Pei Si's eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. To be able to encounter and subdue a yuan fire at such a young age, he must have had a fortuitous encounter. Otherwise, the power of the yuan fire alone was comparable to that of a yuan king expert. It was not something that could be subdued easily. However, there was no fear in Pei Si's eyes. Instead, there was a trace of interest. You possess a primordial fire. Speaking of which, you do have the qualifications to become my opponent. Pei Si thought in his heart. It was simply unbelievable that Pei Si could still be so confident even after Li Zongjiu had displayed such powerful strength. It seemed like Pei Si also had a trump card in his hand. After all, he was the young pavilion master of Chongqing Pavilion. If he didn't have a certain amount of strength, he wouldn't be able to keep his position. He wouldn't even dare to casually walk around Jianghu. The level of danger in Jianghu was naturally clear to everyone. Since Pei Si dared to step out, it meant that he had the ability to protect himself. It's done. That spot is mine, right? Li Zongjiu waved his hand and leaped up, arriving in front of Feng Tingfei. At this moment, Feng Tingfei was still in shock. Where was Lan Qingxiu? Was Lan Qingxiu really burned to ashes? Could this be a trick put on by the two of them? Could it be that Lan Qingxiu invited Li Zongjiu here on purpose to avoid the responsibility of the Dark Horse Elixir meeting? Or could it be that Li Zongjiu and Lan Qingxiu colluded to show off their strength in front of everyone, so that others wouldn't dare to offend them easily? If that was the case, they were a little too scheming. It was scary just thinking about it. However, this was just a thought that Feng Tingfei was deceiving himself. Lan Qingxiu was already dead. The flame seed of the setting sun was enough to explain the situation. Moreover, this flame seed happened to be in Li Zongjiu's hands. Everyone saw this scene, and when they woke up, they would be especially enthusiastic towards Li Zongjiu, because this was a primordial fire kindling. With this primordial fire, it would be a great help to the cultivation of alchemy. Everyone present was very clear about this. If someone were to find this fire seed, then they would certainly refine it in a very secretive manner. If one wanted to buy it in the market, then it would simply be impossible to do so. No one would sell such a thing. But now, Li Zongjiu had such an ownerless fire seed in his hand. Of course. Mr. Lan Qingxiu overestimated himself. It's fine that he's dead. Our 100 Medicine Pavilion won't pursue this matter. Feng Tingfei said hurriedly. That's enough. The other spot belongs to my brother, Kuan Erisher. If anyone dares to touch it, tell them to come find me. Li Zongjiu said. Kuan Erisher, who was beside him, was also moved. The quota of the Dark Horse Elixir meeting itself was a double-edged sword. But of course, there were countless people who wanted it. It was unknown how many people wanted to mix in. Even if they were a little unlucky, they could basically take away a 6th-grade medicinal herb. Find time to refine this. Li Zongjiu waved his hand and threw the flame seed of the setting sun to Kuan Erisher. After Kuan Erisher reached out and caught it, he was shocked when he saw the flame seed clearly. This, I can't accept this. Kuan Erisher waved his hand and said. Although he said that he couldn't accept it, when he waved his hand, he put the flame seed into his pocket. He couldn't wait to find time to refine this flame seed. This kind of flame was no different from trash in front of Li Zongjiu. However, for people like Kuan Erisher who hadn't obtained the primordial fire, it was a priceless treasure. Even Su Sha looked at this scene in disbelief. What did she witness today? What happened to Li Zongjiu was extremely difficult for Su Sha to understand. First, he directly dealt with the son of the Imperial Guard commander, Xiao Tiance. Then with this move he killed Lan Qingxiu, who was ranked 20th in the Sacred Flame Royal City. After obtaining the flame seed of the setting sun, he didn't hesitate, and directly threw it to Kuan Erisher. One should know that even if one did not refine this fire seed, just by selling it or even auctioning it, one would be able to obtain an extremely rich return. This return was basically something that one could not imagine. It would definitely exceed one's imagination. Li Zongjiu generously gave this flame seed to Kuan Erisher. This made Su Sha even more confused. She couldn't see through Li Zongjiu. This is... Oh my god, I don't want to know this person anymore. Su Hong was silent for a while. There was a risk in going on the elixir platform. After all, the people present weren't ordinary people. They were all reputable people who had been in the Jianghu for a period of time. Since Lan Qingxiu was standing on the platform, his life and death were up to fate. Even if Li Zongjiu killed him in front of everyone, the bystanders couldn't say anything. Li Zongjiu's attitude of not caring about worldly affairs made Su Hong admire him, but also gave him a headache. Su Hong immediately signaled the host to move on to the next item. He wanted to dilute this matter first. Cough cough. Ladies and gentlemen, next, we will enter the lucky draw segment of this banquet. Chapter 659. White Deer Manor. Bang! A figure crashed heavily into the ground, creating a deep crater. The ground of the entire White Deer Manor was already in tatters. Lu Wenshan, who had just woken up, was awakened by the continuous shaking. When he saw the scene in front of him, his face suddenly turned serious. What the fuck? Isn't that the Black Mountain Sword King? Why is he lying on the ground like a dead dog? Lu Wenshan's heart was immediately stunned. He looked at the Black Mountain Sword King. At this moment, the Black Mountain Sword King and Lu Wenshan's eyes met. The distance between the two was only 5 or 6 meters. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately stretched out his hand towards Lu Wenshan, as if he wanted to ask for help. When Lu Wenshan saw this, he of course immediately closed his eyes and pretended to be unconscious. He absolutely could not let the enemy find out that he was still awake. Otherwise he would directly hit his head. Lu Wenshan had long had enough of the feeling of being knocked unconscious. Du Liani and the others were in the distance, admiring the scene in front of them. It was simply too shocking. The Black Mountain Sword King was a dignified Sword King expert. Now Du Liani finally knew what kind of group she was in contact with. Ever since he saw Li Zhongjiu, he realized that things seemed to be out of the ordinary. The things she had seen could no longer be described by common sense. But for Du Liani, all of this no longer mattered. Now that she had avenged her great hatred and killed the enemy of many years with her own hands, this feeling of joy was like a dream. For Du Liani, she simply could not believe it. One had to know that the thought and expectation of killing his enemy with his own hands was still something that was far away in the future, half a month ago. Now such a thing had happened. After meeting Li Zhongjiu, in less than a month, she had completed it. Li Zhongjiu was simply a man of his word. Even Du Liani had an illusion that in this world, there seemed to be nothing that Li Zhongjiu could not do. No matter what happened now, Du Liani would not be surprised. Even if the sky fell down, Du Liani believed that everyone in the world would be crushed to death, but Li Zhongjiu would absolutely not die. Dou Ling lifted the Black Mountain Sword King up with one hand. The Black Mountain Sword King's eyes immediately revealed a look of terror. Thunder Soldier Charm. In a moment of desperation, the Black Mountain Sword King could no longer care so much. If he continued to be beaten, he would die. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately threw out the precious amulet he had on him. Boom! The terrifying power of thunder and weapons swept towards Dou Ling. Dou Ling reacted quickly and caught the Thunder Soldier with one hand. However, she was still sent flying by the terrifying shockwave. Boom! Dou Ling's body flew backward, but the light around her was still swirling. The Thunder Soldier charm did not hurt Dou Ling at all. However, as the Thunder Soldier charm spread, the murderous intent in Dou Ling's eyes gradually faded, and the aura on her body gradually returned to normal. The Black Mountain Sword King did not care so much. He directly leaped and swept out of the White Deer Manor. He did not want to stay in this terrifying place any longer. What he suffered today was the most terrifying thing that the Black Mountain Sword King had ever suffered since his debut. Caught in Dou Ling's hand, he was like a weak and powerless chick, at her mercy. He was the Black Mountain Sword King, vicious and merciless, and did not recognize his own family. Now he was so humiliated that he was brutally abused. If people found out, then how could he, the Black Mountain Sword King, show his face in the future? But fortunately, the Black Mountain Sword King's life was saved. My Thunder Soldier charm. I spent 500 upper-grade primordial stones to buy it. The Black Mountain Sword King wanted to cry, but had no tears. Although his life was saved, the Thunder Soldier talisman was equivalent to half of the Black Mountain Sword King's life. He had thought that it would be easy to get, but now it had turned out like this. The Black Mountain Sword King's heart was filled with grief and indignation. However, this loss could only be borne by the Black Mountain Sword King himself. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? He only went to save a person, but he actually lost everything he signed up for. It was simply too pitiful. This was the legendary breaking teeth and swallowing it into the stomach. Now, not only did he lose the Thunder Soldier charm, but he also failed to save Lu Wenshan. This was the most embarrassing situation. But now the Black Mountain Sword King did not care so much. He had to leave this place quickly. If the witch caught up, he did not know what to do. In the end, the Black Mountain Sword King endured his serious injuries and quickly fled into the distance. No one knew which dark corner he was hiding in. Inside the manor, when she saw Dou Ling's aura gradually recover, Du Liani was even a little scared and did not dare to approach Dou Ling easily. It was because the fighting strength that Dou Ling showed just now was too terrifying. The Black Mountain Sword King was like a toy in front of Dou Ling, completely without any power to fight back. Did I see blood just now? Dou Ling or also had a sudden feeling of realization. She couldn't even remember what had just happened. Du Lianyi and Ning, who both nodded repeatedly, looking at the bumpy and dilapidated manor in front of her. Dou Ling knew that she must have entered that state again. I told you, I can't see blood, Dou Ling said with an innocent face. At this moment Lu Wenshan, who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead, twitched when he heard this. Although he was not clear about the situation before, he still remembered very clearly that the Black Mountain Sword King had fled. After using the Thunder Soldier talisman, he was able to escape. It was really shameful. Finally, Lu Wenshan thought about it and decided to stay here first. As long as he was obedient in the White Deer Manor, at least his life would not be in danger. Therefore, Lu Wenshan gradually relaxed and accepted the fate of being imprisoned in the White Deer Manor. 10,000 Tea Manor. When the banquet was in the middle of its progress, Zhuang Ying of the 10,000 Tea Manor also sent someone to report to the Imperial Guards and let them find Xiao Tian's body. When the Imperial Guards found Xiao Tian's body, they were shocked. They were shocked. Not only Xiao Tian's, but also Xiao Tian's special guards. These people were specially trained by Xiao Tian's to protect him. Now all of them had died here. People couldn't help but be shocked. Xiao Tian's was clearly here to exterminate his sect. Quickly inform the commander. Chapter 660. As the deputy commander of the Right Army, Man Lang was filled with joy. His heart was filled with joy. Of course, he was happy when he saw that Xiao Tian's had died. This was because he was well aware of Xiao Tian's background. With Xiao Tian's around, it was impossible for him, the deputy commander, to be promoted to a higher position. Although he was only the deputy commander of the Right Army. However, if he could become the commander of the Right Corps, the level of benefits and treatment would be on a completely different level. If Xiao Tian's didn't commit any serious crimes, his position wouldn't be shaken. But now, Xiao Tian's was beheaded in the 10,000 Tea Mountain Villa. This matter must be very serious. Perhaps Xiao Tian's had provoked someone he couldn't afford to offend. But for Man Lang, this was a very good opportunity for him to be promoted. He immediately sent someone to inform Xiao Tian's father, who was the great commander of the Imperial Guards. Such an important matter must be reported as soon as possible. Man Lang also ordered the surrounding area to be sealed. Then, he observed the dozens of corpses on the ground. 4 of them were only unconscious. They were now captured because the place where they were unconscious was only a few steps away from Xiao Tian's corpse. Take him down and interrogate him. Make them tell me everything they know, Man Lang said coldly. There must be something fishy about this matter. After such a large group of people died, there was no movement. Don't tell me that the 10,000 Tea Mountain Villa didn't know about it. This happened in your territory, so you must be the first to know about it. There was no doubt about it. But now, the blood was almost dry, and your people only came to inform me. Aren't you looking for trouble? Furthermore, how could there be no one patrolling such a large area? As Imperial Guards, if they didn't even have this bit of vigilance, how could they protect the safety of the Imperial City? If this matter wasn't handled well, the Imperial Guards would be in big trouble. After all, the head of the Right Corps commander had been chopped off by someone. For the Imperial Guards, if they couldn't protect themselves, how could they protect others? There was only one wound on these people's bodies. One strike to kill. One of Man Lang's subordinates quickly investigated the area and immediately returned to report. The 15 Imperial Guards in front of him were Xiao Tian's confidants, so they were the only ones present at that time. Who was the person who was supposed to patrol this area? Barbarian Wolf asked. It's the 3rd group. Get me the leader of the 3rd group, Man Lang ordered. Not long after, the leader of the 3rd group was brought before Man Lang. You were supposed to be in charge of this area. Why weren't you on duty at that time? Reporting to the deputy commander, at that time, the commander found this lowly one and asked this lowly one to guard the foot of the mountain. The leader of the 3rd group hurriedly said, such a big thing had happened. It was like hanging a knife over his head. It was already very courageous of him not to run away immediately. After all, this area was under his jurisdiction. Oh, he transferred you to the foot of the mountain, so why did he stay here? Could it be that he stayed here to meet his enemy? Man Lang coldly said. However, on the other side, the unconscious Imperial guards quickly told him everything that had happened. If they didn't clearly explain such a big thing, then they would definitely die. Therefore, at this moment, these Imperial guards also told him the whole story. While Man Lang was listening to the news, there was a trace of astonishment on his face. A maidservant? According to Man Lang's information, these guards were all knocked unconscious. The reason why they were gathered here was to help Xiao Tian's guard, so that Xiao Tian's and a maidservant could do things peacefully. Basically, any man would know what was going on. However, Xiao Tian's was really pitiful. For a mere maidservant, he actually lost his life in the end. It was really hard to believe. Indeed, the gains did not make up for the losses. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? It seems like the culprit only did it on the spur of the moment. That maidservant, what's her name? Capture her for me. As for those guards, the others are all dead. Only a few of them are fine. Since they wanted to silence people, how could they do such a dirty thing? There must be something fishy going on. Man Lang did not want to be played like a monkey. The reason why these people were still alive was probably because the enemy wanted to deliberately leave some false signals. This time, things have gotten a little out of hand. Now the people in the Myriad Tea Villa are all important guests. I can't possibly capture all of them, Man Lang thought in his heart. If that was the case, there was no other way. This was a very troublesome matter. Next, he would have to see how the senior commander would deal with this matter when he arrived. Anyway, he had already grasped the general information. Before the senior commander arrived, he had to capture the maidservant. Man Lang thought in his heart. If he was unable to provide an explanation for this, the first commander would definitely blame him, Man Lang, once he was angered. Therefore, before the senior commander arrived, he had to get to the bottom of this matter. In the banquet garden, Li Zongjio and Kuan Erisher were looking at the invitation letter in their hands nervously. There were already people who had won prizes in front of them. However, they were only the third and second prizes. The best prize, a 6th grade medicinal herb, had not been won yet. Therefore, the two of them were nervously looking forward to it. Next, it's the most important moment of this banquet's lucky draw. A 6th grade medicinal herb. Xianying grass. The provider of this Xianying grass is the 100 Medicine Pavilion. Thank you for your sponsorship. The host on the stage was also blabbering a bunch of nonsense, making Li Zongjio want to rush up and punch him in the face. After talking for a long time, he finally got to the point. He directly drew a number from a box. The number of the winner of the first prize is. However, the host did not read out the number behind it. The sound of iron hooves and armor could be heard from the door. Boom! The door was opened. Immediately, a group of armored soldiers rushed in from all directions. The leader was riding on the back of an armored rhinoceros, his entire body brimming with killing intent. Chapter 661. This scene was beyond everyone's expectations. Weren't these people from the Imperial Guards? Did these Imperial Guards take the wrong medicine? General Xiao? Su Hong stood up. When he saw the leader of the group, he immediately frowned. The person in front of him was the commander of the Imperial Guards, Xiao Han. Xiao Han had been on the battlefield all his life, and had killed countless people. He had a son at an old age, and gradually became the commander of the Imperial Guards. He loved his son dearly, and had brought him with him since he was young to protect Xiao Tian's. Even today's lucrative task was directly handed over to Xiao Tian's to supervise. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? After hearing the news, Xiao Han had no time to say anything. He immediately led his men to the 10,000 Tea Villa. Elder Su Hong, the Imperial Guards are doing their job. Please excuse us. Xiao Han cupped his hands at Elder Su Hong. After all, Elder Su Hong was the elder of the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. His rank was not low. Most importantly, he could speak directly to the Emperor Xingyan. The Heavenly Elixir Pavilion was a project that the Emperor Xingyan attached great importance to. Therefore, Su Hong's status could not be ignored. Did something happen? Su Hong came in front of Xiao Han. Kuan Erisher also took a step forward and stood in front of Li Zongjio. If you are discovered, you should run away first. This man is Xiao Tian's father. Su Sha happened to be beside the two of them. When she saw Xiao Han, her heart skipped a beat as if it was about to stop. The situation in front of her was not something that could be avoided so easily. Su Sha happened to be present when Xiao Tian died. Although this matter had nothing to do with her, it was inevitable that she would get into trouble. Most importantly, Li Zongjio and Kuan Erisher were very likely to be caught by Xiao Han. As long as the maid described their appearance, it would be impossible. None of them would be able to escape. This was the consequence of cutting the grass without removing the roots. Su Sha looked at Kuan Erisher and Li Zongjio, trying to find a trace of regret on their faces. Although Su Sha did not like to kill the innocent, this matter was extremely serious. For the sake of the big picture, she could accept and even support the idea of killing them directly. But after this matter, she would never be friends with Li Zongjio and Xiao Han again. However, there was a trace of nervousness on Kuan Arashi's face. Li Zongjio did not move at all. That is Xiao Tian's father, right? Looking at the situation, Li Zongjio seemed to want to kill Xiao Han as well. No one could figure out what he was thinking. The two of you only need to deny it even if you're beaten to death. They will not dare to do anything, because they have no evidence. Su Sha came to Li Zongjio and said, "Evidence." Speaking of evidence, Xiao Tian's head was still in Li Zongjio's southern ring. It would be easy to find out. However, Xiao Han was not qualified to check Li Zongjio's storage ring. Li Zongjio certainly knew that Xiao Tian's father would come to find them soon, so he let Du Liani leave first. As for the maid, Li Zongjio did not intend to kill her. If he had to sacrifice a woman for Li Zongjio's matter, it would be too shameful. Li Zongjio would never do such a thing, no matter if it was in his previous life or in this life. Among the crowd, Xiao Dai's face turned pale because she had recognized one of the imperial guards. It was this person who called her over, and that was what happened later. Now that these people had come to find her, it would be easy for them to find her. Therefore, Xiao Dai was extremely nervous. Hiding in the crowd, once she was discovered, she would be dealt with unimaginable torture. Alchemists, please calm down. I am Xiao Han, the commander of the Imperial Guards. I am here today to catch a suspect in a murder case. Please stay where you are and do not move around. Otherwise, you will be treated as accomplices. Xiao Han said coldly, so what if these people are alchemists? Now that his son has been beheaded by someone, you guys are here singing and dancing in celebration. I didn't summon the troops, and instead, I directly threw you into the dungeon and tortured you. That's already giving you a lot of face. Imperial guards, find them. Xiao Han gave the order, and without waiting for the approval of the people around him, the cavalry immediately charged in. The alchemists around were disturbed. Of course, they were a little unhappy, but now they knew that the situation in front of them wasn't right. If they stood out at this time, their heads might be chopped off directly. At that time, they would be quickly sent to jail. Then, they would be in for a good time. Song Chu and the others sat steadily like mountains. They didn't put a mere Imperial Guard commander in their eyes. You're just a mere Imperial Guard. You're just a guard. Since when is it your turn to investigate a case? However, they hadn't bumped into them yet. Naturally, they would put this matter aside for the time being. Although they were unhappy, they didn't flare up. They just looked at the situation in front of them and thought that it would be better to just let it go after a search. Since they had encountered such a situation, they would naturally tolerate it as much as possible. Presumptuous. Xiao Han and the others' eyes were suddenly attracted by a voice. When they looked over, it just so happened that the Imperial Guard was sent flying by a slap from Li Zongjio. This Imperial Guard was just passing by Li Zongjio. He did not know what was going on at all, but he was directly slapped by Li Zongjio. When he saw the guard fly out, even Kuan Erisher, who was beside Li Zongjio, did not understand. Why did you make the first move? It was simply unexpected. It was hard to imagine. Li Zongjio withdrew his slap. This guy who framed him and took the initiative to find trouble was really restrained. In the past, Li Zongjiu often did such things. However, that was after his strength had reached a certain level. He often relied on his strength to find trouble everywhere. Anyway, you can't do anything to him. After sending Li Zongjiu flying with a slap, the surrounding imperial guards immediately rushed towards Li Zongjiu. Naturally, Xiao Han could not mobilize the imperial guards in the imperial city outside. If he did, who would protect the imperial city? The imperial guards present at the scene were all imperial guards of the right army. When Man Lang saw the commotion, he didn't waste any more words. He immediately drew his blade and walked towards Li Zongjiu with a fiendish expression. What kind of situation was this? There was actually such an ignorant person. Su Sha was also dumbfounded. This Li Zongjiu, what kind of fire chicken was he going to do? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.